go. Um, obviously, we'll be holding off on eating this until a little bit later after the discussion, because obviously we want the focus to be on what it needs to be on. Anyway, thank you once again, Lilith, for stopping in, man.
My pleasure, dude. My pleasure.
Thank you. I have one thing I want to set up real quick, and I have this nice little thing that I set up. So hopefully this works. Yeah, there it is. Perfect. All right, so let's go to our conversational screen now.
Nice, okay.
And hopefully this works. There it is. Perfect. Perfect. So now we can see Lilith talking. Yay, look
Hell
at this.
yeah.
Hey, Wash, how are you doing,
Nice.
man? What's going
Doing
on?
fantastic, man, as always.
Yeah. I'm gonna, you know what? We'll put on Dead by Daylight. We'll let the game capture. I was gonna put up a background image, but you know what? We'll just let the game speak for itself in the background just
Awesome.
for this. Welcome in, Washed, man. Thank you for coming in. Thank you. By the way, we'll be using something that Washed actually provided me on one of the kind of the math on the BTL changes that are occurring, because
Gotcha, okay.
I have a bit of a concern about it. His math has kind of waylaid a little bit of the concern, but to me the concern still kind of exists regardless, just a
Okay.
little bit, because of not just toolboxes but other things involving BTL as it is. But we'll get into that discussion when we get around to it. I want to talk,
Mhm.
I guess, more about the overall changes we're going to be getting, and I kind of want to get your thoughts. I mean, I'm here to
Mhm.
observe and discuss things. Well, thank you for coming in, Wash. That's actually kind of what I was hoping. Like, I wanted to get your opinion on it because you're a comp player, and then we also have Lilith here. Lilith is our resident Blight God tier main who comes in every once in a while and likes to shuffle around like
I
the
try my best.
uh, blight injected zombie he is from time to time. Uh, but okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Kind of what I we'll go through it. We'll go over it more generally. We'll try not to get too stuck in the nitty gritty on details if we can help it. But so behavior has released. It's part one and it's part two of the potential changes when it comes to killer updates, add-ons, and everything like that. And I want to hit on a couple like the major things. First off, we're getting a Trapper buff. Trapper is going to start out with all 6 of his traps upon spawn that spawn into the map. He's not going to like start with them literally, but they will spawn in the map. And he'll be able to have or start with 2 bear traps by default.
Mhm.
Obviously, there's going to be a couple add-on changes, like his tension spring and his trapper sack. Trapper sack is probably not going to be as good as it once was because he's getting 2 additional plus the D6 spawn in, and it's going to be a little bit. It's going to be a little bit better for Trapper in that case. We'll have to see what other add-on changes they made, and then we can make decisions on that. Or put our thoughts on that. So a lot of this is going to be almost speculative based on what we know, but some of it's going to be like a little bit more sure depending on what we talk about. So what do you think about what they're doing with Trapper?
I feel like this has been a long time coming. Obviously, with the whole spawning of 2 trap situation,
Mm,
I feel like, to be honest, I don't think that the trapper bag. I mean, it's going to be a completely different the trapper sack even. It's not going to be as kind of effective as it currently is, but it's an entire different idea now, right? It's not
mm-hmm,
like it's been modified or nerfed or buff.
mm-hmm.
It's a completely different add-on, and in a way, I mean, imagine combining that with like the iridescent stone, assuming that one doesn't get changed, right?
Yeah,
Like
assuming.
having the ability to have them constantly just like kind of like a rearm, is that the right word?
Yeah,
Re-enable
like
themselves, I guess.
basically
Um
reset a trap.
Reset, exactly.
Yeah.
Constantly. So you could like, for example, bring corrupt intervention, maybe deadlock or something.
Mm-hmm.
Place all of your traps around, and then let the iridescent stone do the rest of the work, the whole rest of the game. You know?
True. Because then if you have more traps on the field, they're going to be harder to manage. So the Eerie Stone would definitely come in handy in that particular
Exactly.
case. I think the other problem here is, though, is what they probably need to work on is now we get, instead, it was 4 to 6 traps. It was always 4 to 6
Mhm.
traps would spawn in. You didn't know how many were going to spawn in from start. Now they all spawn in from start. You know where all of them are, essentially. Um, but the problem still remains getting to those traps Because let's say Trapper gets Swamp, for instance. We all know how Swamp is. Swamp is notoriously
Oh
difficult
yeah,
to get
oh
to
yeah.
particular things. And things spawn on the edges of maps for whatever reason. It like hatch, for instance. Gens will spawn on the edge of the map where nothing exists. There's nothing out there. There's no priority. There's no proximity to anything that's particularly useful. You can't get to survivors as easily. Traps could just spawn on the outside of the map, and that could make it incredibly hard. And now I'm not a trapper player. I don't play trap killers. Trap killers are my weakness. I'm really bad at trap killers. So, like generally speaking, for me, this isn't going to be that big of a deal because I don't play them. But for I'd say for people who are avid like hag trapper players, they like trap killers. They like being able to set up an environment where they can weed survivors in and take advantage of them and make sure they could nail them down into one location. It's going to be that's still going to be one of the weaknesses that I feel like they could work on is making sure the RNG of the spawns is good.
Mhm.
But outside of that, I genuinely think this is good for Trapper. All in all said, like all of
All
them
around,
spawn.
I
Yeah,
agree.
all around. He's getting his extra trap. He
Mhm.
gets to carry them. He doesn't have to go pick them up. He gets two. He can set immediately, and then the other ones are all spawned, ready to go. He can go grab them, find them, put them wherever he needs them, and that's gonna be ultimately better for Trapper overall. And we'll have to see what the add-ons bring because with Tension Spring, uh, a bear trap resets 2 seconds after a survivor escapes from it.
Mhm.
That's pretty freaking good. You don't
Yeah,
have to reset
totally.
that trap. That is really good.
Mhm.
Trapper Sack obviously is adjusted and it's not as strong because of the fact that he's getting that additional trap. All right, let's
For
move
sure.
on to Spirit. Now, this
Yeah.
is probably going to be one of the more contentious changes. For me personally, Deathlinger is the more contentious change, but we'll get into that.
Yeah, I'm
um,
looking forward to that discussion.
Oh man, I don't know if you have me followed on Twitter, man, but I've already gotten to a lot of arguments about Desslinger. I think one of the things that I said was I said this to RGB. I was
Right.
like, I think we were discussing something, and I said, yeah, that's cool and all, but I'm just gonna spend some time crying over his coffin while I get the opportunity. Kitty, thank you for those. Thank you for those. But anyway, back on topic. Spirit. The main changes that we're getting here, outside of obviously some add-on changes with the Senko Hanabi and the
Stop it, Fulmey!
Wakizashi Saya. Anonymous cheer, thank you for the bit. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Because you're a Deathslinger main, former Deathslinger main technically, and I'm shit at Deathslinger now. I haven't played him in so long. Every time I pick him up, my aim is crap. Um, I'm terrible at Deathslinger now. Because I spent so much time playing Blight. Thanks, Ascension and Lilith. That's both of your
No
faults.
problemo.
And Pyramid Head too. I play a lot of Pyramid. Well,
Oh, of course, of
not so
course.
much Pyramid Head since
Stop
the
it,
bug, but I
Fulmey!
picked him back up to get it up. Thank you for the next bit there, Anonymous. But main things they're changing is now Spirit has directional sound when phasing. So this is going to give
Mhm.
you apparently a rough idea of where she's coming from, and then on top of that, she's going to have dust where her footsteps are. And this can sometimes be obscured by objects based on the way that they've worded this. They've also done some additional passes on the spirit add ons to bring them in line and make the lesser used add ons more appealing, but we'll see how these work when they release them on the PTB tomorrow. So, what are your initial thoughts on the spirit changes?
So, I mean, again, kind of like the Trapper thing, it's been a long time coming. I think, without question, Spirit has been probably the most contentious part of DBD since released.
Mm,
Um, I feel like I'm kind of mixed though, because I've always said that with the Spirit, what I'd love to see is giving survivors the ability to have the same kind of potential high level play that she does, right? She
mm,
doesn't see the survivors. She doesn't have any idea where they are
mm,
other than hearing, right?
mm,
And so I think giving the survivors the ability to also hear her, again, like you'd have to be very good at the game. You'd have to be very, kind of careful with your hearing, kind of like your spatial sound awareness, stuff like that. In the same way that she is. So a very, very talented survivor can counterplay a spirit the same way that she can. I've always kind of felt like that should be the way. The
mm.
problem is though, and to an extent, I actually feel like it might be better for the spirit player because if they're very, very good and they can kind of like kind of what's the best way to explain it, right? So what
So
for
I'm
example,
guessing
if
what you mean by this is
yeah.
they can use the new knowledge that survivors have of how your ability works to kind of almost use
To
that as
their
a mind
advantage,
game.
exactly, as
Yes.
a mind game within, exactly, which to
Mm,
me just kind of opens up for more counterplay because at that point, if I was playing Survivor and I was going against some really, really good spirit, and she not only knew where I was because of because of the fact that she can hear me as usual, but
mm,
then she used the fact that I could hear her to then try and deceive where she was going to be to then go and be somewhere else, right? Like to that extent, I kind of feel like you'd almost be in the situation where you're like, you know what, fair play. That was a pretty good move, which is something you've never really said about a spirit before, right? It's usually, oh, there was nothing I could have done. It was just
mm-hmm.
random.
Yes,
Whereas like
true.
now, like accepting this thing where like I get hit by a really good spirit that like double mind games it and understands where I'm hearing her, that could be a really good thing.
Hmm.
My biggest issue though is it all depends on how far they take it to how specifically I know exactly where
Where
she
she
is,
is
right?
exactly.
Right. It
That
has
is
to be
my exact
somewhat
thing
vague,
too.
which is why I'm kind of scared about the whole dust kicking up thing
Hmm.
because that sounds like extremely specific, right? If I can see
Yes.
exactly where her feet are because she is kicking up the dust in that specific area, there's no longer a mind game at all as to what direction. For example, I'm on like one of those junk tiles in like Autohaven, right? Like Gas
Mm.
7. And around those tiles, there's no long grass. There's not really anything there. Even worse on maps like Coldwind, for example.
Hmm.
And if all I'm seeing is that like she goes into the husk, which I now know that she's moving because I get that directional audio.
Yes.
As soon as she starts to move around it, I'm like, well, I can see her moving dust to my left, so I move to the right. If
Yes.
it's too specific, it will kill the character.
Yes, and I agree with that. And Washed actually just mentioned something in the chat. He said they said it's not shipping this mid chapter if it's not needed. So apparently behavior's kind of walked back a little bit on the dust thing. And if the dust thing is needed after the directional change, then they will
Yeah.
add it. Yeah, Kadori, I saw that too. Dead Dog, we're not getting that back till October 19th. They keep pushing it
Hmm.
back. Um, but honestly, I think it's a good idea not to do the dust. But like what you said, I said this too. I said that exact thing. It depends on how they're implementing the dust, and it depends on how they're implementing the directional phase. If the dust is something that you can see very, very clearly
Hmm.
without having to really put too much thought or effort into it, then it's probably a bad idea for Spirit. So if they're walking that back, that's a good thing ultimately. Because as much as I agree, I was a Spirit main, moved to Deathslinger, moved to fucking Blight.
Blight,
Um,
let's go.
yeah, I moved, but I stopped playing Spirit because it was very easy. To be quite honest, it was almost like way too easy. Like it was a lot of reward for very little risk in a lot of cases
Yeah.
because there are
Yeah.
ways you can force survivors into scenarios where they just can't win. They just have no option. And I don't mind a 50-50 mind game, but the problem is there wasn't that many 50-50 mind games. I liked the standing still to trick survivors thing. I thought that was a clever thing to do. Um, I like the I actually liked the vault phasing too. I thought the vault phasing was an interesting thing
Hmm.
to do because the spirit could stop and not go through the phase or not go through the vault and phase, or she could go through the vault and then take her time. But if she goes to the vault and you're watching from like the back door of like Shack, for instance, you can just run the opposite direction to the next nearest
Hmm.
loop, which I never had a problem with her vaulting animation. That was the one of the least egregious things about her to me. I get that some people are irritated by it and they changed it, whatever. I didn't care about that. Um, too much, but I did agree that Spirit was definitely way too strong in her current state with very little reward or engagement because and I remember I was watching a Scott Jun video and he was trying to prove a point about Spirit and how to deal with it and blah 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 blah, but the thing that we all know about Scott is he does not fully use her phase ability, and I pointed out in one of the chases he had with a competitive player how he shortened his phase when he didn't need to, and he extended a chase that he didn't need to extend by an additional like 10 seconds. I was like, bro, you could have just kept going, even with the way that the scratch marks were in the particular position she was in. You could have kept going, then came out of it from the other side, and you would have hit them. No, they'd have no option. They got no options in this scenario. So there was too many. My overall point is there was too many plays that were like that with Spirit. So them doing that, probably a good idea. And Adori, thank you for the host. I appreciate that. But anything else you want to discuss with Spirit, or do you think we've covered about basically pretty
I
much
mean,
most of
kind
it?
of going back to the add-ons, I
Mm-hmm.
think they could actually be really healthy because, in a way, they remind me of Blight's add-ons, right? I think the
Mm.
reason why people enjoy Blight's add-ons so much is because, unlike characters like, for example, Deathslinger or
Billy,
Ghostface,
Pyramid
or
Head.
Billy, yeah, okay, Pyramid Head is an entirely different subject when it comes to add-ons. But like when you
Mm-hmm.
look at characters like Blight, what the main difference is that they actually change his gameplay, right? It doesn't just like fix a fault in him like it does with Slinger or Ghostface,
Yes.
where
Yes.
it's making him a little bit more viable, right? With Ghostface, you want like the recharge add-ons
Mm.
or something that means that you can stall people for longer. It's just kind of like increasing base kit values, whereas Blight has these add-ons that physically change the entire way the character plays. I mean,
Yes.
Adrenaline Valve, right?
Yes.
Adrenaline Valve speed, you've got like slam duration, all of these
Alchemist
things kind of
Ring.
extend. Yeah, exactly. And so I feel like having these add-ons now that completely change the way. I mean, for example, the one that like allows her to go back
Husk.
to the
Yeah,
husk
that's
again
a cool
is
idea.
really
That's
cool
a cool
because
idea.
it actually kind of adds counterplay into the whole standing still mind game. The
Mm-hmm.
spirit was not standing still, but they
Mm.
decided to go back to it again, right?
Mm.
So they were moving, decided it was a bad play. Maybe again the mind game could be that you just you start like teleporting around, you get the survivor to go towards the original husk, and then you teleport back, right? Knowing
Yes.
their situation.
Yes.
Stuff like that I think is genius. I mean, to
That
be
is
fair, the one
smart.
thing I'm most excited about is the add-on where she explodes. Like I'm so excited to see like the animation for that because I'm really hoping she literally explodes. Blood and guts go flying everywhere. It would look. I mean, obviously won't, but I
It
think
probably
that would
won't.
be
It
so
will probably
sick,
be
right?
like some kind of like fireworks explosion.
It probably will. Yeah, it'd be like the clown's party bottles, right? It'd
Yeah,
be a
yeah.
similar thing.
It's like
But
it's like nurses teleport back and clown's party bottle combined together.
yeah, exactly. Which I think is really unique, and I think the game needs more of those kind of like fun and interesting add-ons
Yes.
that don't just like fix a character's base problems. It's why when you look at demo, I think is another good example, as well as
Mm.
Ghostface being the main kind of culprit, where it's like why would you run anything other than recharge, right?
Yeah.
Like there's no real benefit in running anything. The same with demo, like demo, especially like
Although we'll
pre-update.
say demo
Yeah.
post add-on update, a lot of
Oh
his
yeah.
stuff actually did change the way he played in a lot
Oh
of
for
things.
sure.
But now we're not gonna have demo anymore technically. So
True, but like even after the update, it's still the same case of glasses and is it liver or something being kind of like the
yeah,
go-to that
yeah,
most of them
kind
use,
of,
right?
yeah, yeah.
And I feel like
But there's still other
oh yeah, they
valid
totally are. Yeah. I mean, but
options. Yeah.
like he's I mean like Demo's not the greatest example because obviously he's already been modified. It's mostly with people like Ghostface and also Slinger, right?
Demogorgon Kitty.
Slinger, yeah, like it's if you look at Slinger, if I go
Hmm.
into a Slinger game and I want to win, it will be double recharge.
It's double
Like
reload. Yes.
exactly. Like why would I not bring that? I've got other ones. You've got stuff that's interesting. I think like the iridescent coin is actually a really rewarding add-on because of that, because it rewards like skill play.
My biggest
But
problem with the Eerie add-on, though, and this is
yeah,
like a separate discussion, so we won't go too far into it. But my biggest issue with the Eerie add-on is once you've used it, though, which has happened in a lot of my games when using it. Once you've used the Eerie add-on coin, and especially if the survivors are communicating, they all
yeah,
know that you have it, and then they start to play around it, and then it becomes effectively useless. Um,
yeah.
because and even if they're not communicating, they're gonna know because they're gonna be like, "Wait, weren't you like not injured?" And then all of a sudden
And now
you're
you're down.
down.
Yeah,
Yeah, then they're gonna
yeah.
be like, "Oh, he's running that add-on." So even if you're
Hmm.
solo or comp, that was always my biggest problem with the Eerie add-on was it gives itself away. It's a lot of work for very limited reward is the problem with it.
True,
It
but
does
I
change the
yeah.
way the game I agree with you though. It does change the way that the character operates and gives them a new style of play, but that style of play it's debatable on whether or not it's actually effective.
It's actually effective, but I guess that kind of brings in the other point, though. The point that I always like to bring up is that like even if it's not the most effective technique or the most effective add-on available,
Mhm.
it's fun.
Yeah, no, it
Playing with
is.
the
It
Erie
is.
coin and I get that insta down, it feels incredible, right? It's like
Yes.
you
Yeah.
lined up the shot that and the other thing is as well, if you're not using like an add-on that affects the amount of time you can reel them in for,
Mm.
you've got such a small window to actually melee that person after they've
Yes.
been hooked, even if there's nothing there. So like actually getting that hit feels so clutch
It
to
does feel
actually pull
satisfying.
off, right?
Yeah.
Which I kind of feel like is is so important in DVD add-ons because, or just DVD, kind of gameplay in general, is that everything should feel fun and rewarding, right? If it
Yes.
doesn't, then it's been designed
Yes,
incorrectly.
it's been designed incorrectly. Yeah, because ultimately, at the end of the day, a game should feel fun, right? A game should feel fun.
Oh, totally. Yeah, totally.
And I guess that will lead into our next discussion about a character, whether it's debatable whether or not he's fun in regards to
Mhm.
gameplay. And Justini, welcome in. We're going to talk about the changes to Deathslinger.
Right. Yeah.
This is somebody that I formerly used to play a lot. I got a lot of notoriety from my friends because of it, because they would always be, because when I asked, I'd be like, guys, what would you be afraid to go against if I was playing? It used to be Deathslinger. People would be like, oh, I don't want to go up against your Deathslinger. I have no interest in going up against
Mhm.
that.
I know the feeling.
I now cannot say that I'm any good at Deathslinger because I just hardly ever play him anymore. Um, and I'm really bad at them now. I can't honestly say that I've had a good game with Deathslingers in a while. Like, my shots are terrible. But that aside,
Mm.
just to give, that was just for context.
Mhm.
So my feelings might be a little bit biased. Um, you can no longer shoot until you have fully aimed down sights.
Yeah.
You also are going to be unable to, like, let's say there's an increased delay after canceling your shot before you can start a basic attack. So there's now a delay on the cancel. So that's basically there to stop the M2 spamming. And I agree that there shouldn't be M2 spam. I don't think you should be able to, like,
Yeah.
aim
Yeah.
up
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
down as fast as possible. But I still
Mhm.
think there should be a element of the quick shot in the game, because that was the skill expressive part of his kit. And it was the only way to catch survivors off their guard. And the other thing is, the projectile was already so small, hitting it was a feat. The other
Mhm.
issue that we're going to run into now too is they've decreased the move speed penalty while aiming down sights, but I don't think that really is enough compensation for what they're doing. And then on top of that, they have now increased his terror radius to 32 meters,
Yeah. Which is huge.
which is probably one of the biggest
Mhm.
nerfs to him, next to the delay on his aiming, uh,
Mhm.
which is those are probably the two biggest. And if they didn't put the delay on the aiming, maybe the 32-meter radius wouldn't be as big of a deal to me. But having those both, I don't know. That's frustrating to me. And then
Well, I
all.
mean, it kind of feels almost like like reminiscent of the Billy situation,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Where you look at like a change, and it's like,
100%.
okay, well, I mean, I can kind of get that, but then they change more than one thing at the same time, and it's a
Yeah, it
combination. You're like,
compounds.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I understand the complaints with, like, it isn't fun going up against a Deathslinger who constantly, like, raises and lowers his gun really fast. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
I completely 100% understand that as a survivor. That definitely needed to be changed. The biggest problem, though, with Deathslinger is he is a 1v1 character only.
Yes,
That was
this is the exact point that I made on stream. Is that
exactly.
like he's not like Huntress, and he's not like, I mean, because I was going to mention that like this change to his aiming to me is very reminiscent of Pyramid Head, right?
Mm-hmm.
When they
Mm-hmm.
changed the delay between him being able to like pull up and then M1 someone, right? It's very similar.
It's very
The problem
similar.
is that Pyramid Head is a 115 killer that could
Mm-hmm.
ignore like DS, ignore
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
ignore borrowed time. He's also one of the only killers in the game that can actually 1v2 because he is chasing two people. He
Mm-hmm.
then torments, he puts them in the ground instantly and
Mm-hmm.
straight onto the next person. The
Exactly.
problem with Slinger is I actually feel very similarly as to how they're getting Trickster wrong, right? Is they keep buffing Trickster, they keep changing the amount of knives that it takes, all this kind of stuff, but they're missing the critical problem with Trickster. Is it's
Mm-hmm.
not his 1v1. Trickster's
Mm-hmm. It
1v1
was never his
is
1v1.
strong. It was strong. Same as Deathslinger's 1v1 is and was strong.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's really not the 1v1 that's the problem. It's the 1v4.
Mm-hmm.
Like Deathslinger's 1v4 is atrocious.
It's the
He
worst.
he has no map pressure at all. Like arguably only compared to Trickster.
Yes.
Um, but like taking away his 1v1 is fine. And I think here's where the problem kind of comes in, right? Is that like Of course, to the average 1v1, it doesn't seem fun to go up against because
Yes.
there's not really much potential of a kind of counterplay. If you're up against a Death Slinger that can hit their shots, is worth saying.
Yes.
Um, then like there's nothing you can do. They'll drag you around. They know where they can hit you. They know what they can hit through. It's kind of null and void. But
Yes.
the problem as extension is you've got to remember that as a team, you're not a 1v1, you're a
Yes.
1v4. And so like although it might be frustrating to go up against him in a 1v1, your team probably still escapes most times more often than not against a Slinger because his map pressure is so garbage, right? So taking this away and making it so survivors will probably, more often than not last longer against Slinger, which means
Mm.
less time for him to go and pressure anybody else,
Mm.
means that I'm genuinely kind of fearful for like how effective he's going to be as a killer in general. Because
Mm.
even in current state, where I think people would say that he's OP, if you look at the stats of like how many
He's
he
not.
kills on
He
average,
kills maybe 2 at best if he's lucky.
it's not very good. I've had games, and it's kind of similar to like Legion in a way. You know how
Mhm.
when you play Legion, you feel like you're doing a lot. You're really active. You're tracking people. You're injuring people, and you feel like you had such a good game. And then by the time you notice, there's 4 people out.
Yeah.
It's a similar with Deathslinger, where I feel like I'm doing really good, getting good shots.
But
I'm
at
hooking
the end of the
people,
day, it
and
doesn't
then
matter if gens are getting done.
I mean, 5 gens done. I'm 6 hooks in. It's GG.
Yeah, exactly. That's the biggest problem with Deathslinger, and that's what I've been saying forever, since forever. You've heard me talk about this before.
Hmm.
That Deathslinger, I've argued this with so many people because everybody's like, "Oh, Deathslinger's annoying. Deathslinger's this. Deathslinger's that." And I'm just like, and then people even will go as far as to say, "Deathslinger's overpowered. He's way too strong. He's S tier." And I'm like, in what world? In what world is this man S tier? The
See, yeah,
S tier is
the
reserved for killers that are all around good. He is
yes.
not.
But then that is part of the problem, though, isn't it? Is that I think a lot of people have this perception that he's really, really good because your chases don't last any time at all, right? I
Mhm.
feel like a lot of people have this disconnect. Again, kind of like, remembering it's a 1v4, is
Mhm.
that like, yeah, if you go against like a trapper or something, you can juice him for 5 gens and it will feel like he's really weak. It will feel like he did very well.
Mhm.
But against the Slinger, you might last only, 15, 20 seconds, but
Yeah.
the team did all 5 gens,
Yeah.
right? Like because it doesn't matter how many chases he gets into, his pressure is so bad. There's always going to be 3 people on the other side of the map that are going to be unpressured for so long. Well,
Exactly.
it's just holding M1.
Here's one of the things that you end up doing a lot as and this is a common thing if you've ever played survivor against a deathslinger, this is common among the best deathslingers because they understand this is how you have to play. They will go back to hooks, they will stay territorial, they will not leave certain areas because they know this is their area that they need to be able to patrol, especially if it's a 3 or 4 gen where they're just like, hey, I'm gonna have to let go of some gens and just protect this area. They will like they will outright tunnel you off a hook if they have to, because that is how you have to play slinger. It's not, oh, I could kind of do this and like I don't need to. I still have plenty of pressure here and here and there and whatever. But good slingers against decent to above average survivors, you have to tunnel. You
Stop
have
it,
to camp.
Fulmey!
If you don't do any of those things, hold on, let me turn off my alerts real quick. Um, you have to do those things, and if you don't, you're going to more often than likely lose, which is a shame to say, um, but it's just the truth because he is not a map pressure killer. He's 110. He's not able, if 2 people are on a gen, and this has happened so many times, I have called it on my stream multiple times. Every time there's been 2 survivors on a gen, I'm on the other side of the map. I'm like, by the time I walk over there, this gen's gonna be done because there's 2 on it. If I was
Yeah.
a 115, I have a chance because I can get over there. If I'm Blight, even if they're like 50% through the gen, I have a chance. I can get over there. Um, but if you're a 110 movement speed killer with who's ranged, but your range is also limited, you're not like Huntress. You can't like throw a hatchet, you can't throw a harpoon across map and hit somebody and get an injure state. That's just not a possibility.
Well, yeah. I,
You're
I, I
stuck
was
within
going
a
to say that
range.
it's interesting that people call him a ranged killer, though, right? Because although he is ranged, technically because he
He's like
hits you with a
faux
projectile,
ranged.
he's still a melee killer, though. He
Yes, he
can't down
is.
you from range,
Yeah,
right?
he can't.
Unlike Pyramid Head or Huntress can, or Trickster. Those are
And
ranged killers to me,
and
right?
hitting you with the range doesn't mean you're gonna get injured either.
No, not at all. If he breaks the chain, then nothing happens.
Yeah, if he breaks the chain, then nothing has to happen. Like if he's like, wow, I could like break the chain and then put you in the injured state and take the fatigue, or is that worth it in this particular scenario? Maybe we should break the chain and not take the injure and just get close, because if
Yeah,
I
this is the
let you
other thing
go,
as well. Yeah.
yeah, it's another thing. And you also have to consider the fact that Deathslinger has like 8 different fatigue states if you really want to consider it. He's got like so many different things that he has to do just to
Mhm.
secure the hit in general. He has to first A, hit you with this small ass projectile that you have to lead, and then hope sometimes it doesn't just go through the survivor, which has happened to me on multiple
Mhm.
occasions. I've literally had survivors standing still. I've had survivors stand still, crouched, and shot directly through their body, and it just went right through. And I'm
Well,
like,
to be honest though, that's not even the biggest concern. I mean, he's also a killer, kind of like Blight, like to an extent that is ping based, right?
mm-hmm,
If
mm-hmm.
you go against a survivor that has atrocious ping, there's a good chance you shoot through them. They play the animation of being hit, and they don't actually
They
get
get
dragged
hit.
towards you. In fact,
Yes.
I mean, how many times have you hit a survivor that lagged a dead hard, and it will show you the animation of them getting
But they
caught,
get out.
they
Yes.
get out, right? Yeah.
Yes. I've had that happen on a vault. I've had somebody
Yeah,
get hit
yeah.
on a vault and they still made through the vault. I was like, "Oh,
Hmm.
what?"
Yep.
I was like, "How did that happen?"
Yep.
It's ridiculous. Especially the same thing with Huntress too. Like when you hit a survivor
Yeah,
with a Huntress
totally.
hatchet and they dead hard, it's almost like they
But
didn't
yeah,
get hit.
it's even worse with Huntress. I kind of feel like Huntress
Oh
one
yeah,
is
it's
even more
super
kind of
bad with Huntress.
infuriating because you see the blood on your screen, you hear that sound, that nice
Mhm.
satisfying hits
Mhm.
of the hatchet clawing into their skull,
Mhm.
and yet you just see them move through it like
This
nothing
is
happened.
this
It's
is the
like
thing
come
that's
on,
happened on Pyramid Head too. I've actually had this happen on Pyramid Head where I
really?
throw
I've
my
never had it on Pyramid
M2
Head.
and somebody walks or runs through the M2 right as the, because you know how it works in sections, right?
Yeah,
It doesn't all
yeah.
come at once. It works in
No, it's
sections.
kind of like a piano key. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. But it's really fast sections. And if
yeah,
they
yeah, yeah,
even
totally.
hit within like 3 of the sections, if they walk
Hmm.
across that area, they get hit. I've
Yep.
watched somebody go through and not get hit, and I'm like,
For sure, for
I
sure.
literally just watched you step into it. I've hit people from weirder angles. Like, this is a direct, you were walking through it, and I timed it. Like, how did you get through
Hmm.
that? I've literally had that happen. Like, Dead Hard obviously will get out of it, but, like, this is just people
Yeah.
running. Sometimes it happens.
Yeah, for sure. But
So,
I guess like ping's an entirely
yeah, ping's an
different
entirely
conversation.
different
Yeah.
conversation. But my overall point here is like, not only do you have to hit, but then you have to reel them in.
Hmm.
Then you have to hit them with your melee.
Hope they don't get stuck on anything as
Hope they don't
well.
get stuck on anything. And then you have to go through the actual fatigue animation
And then
of any,
reload.
and then reload. So you have like 5 to 6
Like two
different
hours, yeah.
states just to get your one hit, as opposed to,
On injury, yeah.
yeah, as opposed to any other killer. You're Legion and you're not using your power, you M1 them, they're injured. You walk up to them, you M1 them, they're injured. You're fucking
Yeah.
Clown, you walk up to them, you M1 them, they're injured. You're literally any other killer. You're fucking Ghostface,
I mean,
Myers.
like Huntress is a great comparison there, right?
Yes.
Huntress, she readies up even if you want to go for like a fully charged hatchet, which you don't have to if they're
Yeah,
very
you can
close.
cancel it.
You just yeah, exactly. But say they're right in front of you, you don't need to fully charge it. It takes like a second, right? You then throw it. You have like a tiny bit of a speed decrease where you like kind of go to pick up your
Mm-hmm.
weapon again, and
Yes.
that's it. There is nothing. There's no reload. There's no that you just walk after them, and they're probably going to get a little bit of speed, and then you could just instantly throw another one. I think the comparison to the two, I understand that like I mean Huntress in a way they are functionally they are kind of functionally different, kind of different though,
Yeah, they're
right?
similar but
Because
different. That's the
they
thing.
are similar, but I think the main difference being is that like Deathslinger potentially why he feels worse to go up against as a survivor is that he drags you away from things, right? The
Yes.
Huntress, if she gets a really good shot, she like clears this like tiny little gap between like a
Mm,
trash tile or
mm.
something and hits you in the head with it. It kind of feels like from survivor side, it kind of feels like you know what that was actually a pretty well deserved hit. That was well aimed or well timed, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas the Slinger, I think the reason why people don't like him is because he takes you away from everything, right? He
Yeah.
hits you around something, you can't drop the pallet, you can't try and, get in the way of things. It's just, you just have to deal with it. Whereas at least with Huntress, there is that kind of like, there is the the ability to dodge things, and if you get
Mhm.
hit, it's just an instant hit. You know?
And you know what? I can see that, but like, I guess for me personally, that's never really bothered me because it's like, if to me, if a Death Slinger gets a hit, it's to me, it's well deserved in most cases. I mean, there's very few times where I've been hit by a Death Slinger and I was like, God, that was bullshit. You know? Um,
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm of the same mentality that like it's like it's very rare, if ever, that I get hit by a death slinger and I'm like, that shouldn't have hit, or unless it's really laggy, and then I guess it's totally different. But like, it still feels skilled. I think the problem being though is that like there are many instances where you kind of feel like you can't do anything. For example, what about a slinger with 8 stacks instead of best for last, and
yeah,
you're just running a straight line because it's a complete dead zone, right? What are you supposed to do in those
there's not been
situations?
much
I
you can
I,
do
I I
there.
can understand
Yeah.
because you're kind of stuck.
Mhm.
But at the same time, the same thing would happen with Huntress, right?
Mhm.
The same thing would probably happen with Trickster, and like any kind of range killer in a dead zone is gonna dominate.
Yes. you know what? And I can agree with that. Because that's kind of like, that's always the thing, and that's what we're kind of trying to get at here is, it's a balance of what's fun versus what's effective and fair, I guess. And striking that
Yeah,
balance is very difficult, and I can understand why people were upset with Deathslinger. My overall problem with these nerfs, however, is, to me it's like taking it 3 or 4 steps too far. And it also is going to depend, especially on add-ons. And I already thought that Deathslinger is kind of a add-on reliant killer, but I think in this
I feel like
case,
he is. Yeah.
he's going to be even more so. Because I have a feeling a
Mhm.
lot of the add-ons they're going to do are probably going to be buffs to the nerfs that they did.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure.
That's
I can see it now.
100% how I feel. He's going to be, before you could get, honestly, you could get away playing Deathslinger not running double reload. You could get away, like, double
Well, you
reload
totally can.
is good. It's very, very, very good. But was it necessary?
It's
Not
not necessary.
really.
No.
Not 100%. It's just to make it a little bit easier on you so the game isn't so hard when you're like, when you're not running, like, when you don't have things to deal with the fact that you don't have map pressure. Like if you're not running Rune Undying and you're not running
Mhm.
like
Pop
Corrupt or
Synchro, stuff like
Pop
that,
or
right?
Tinker.
Yeah,
Yeah, stuff
yeah.
like that. So that's what that is for. I know a lot of people laughed at me when I used Tinker on Deathslinger, but hey, that thing got me a fucking shit ton of wins, so fuck you. Everybody was all like, oh, runs to Biffle, runs to Biffle. Bitch, I didn't need to Biffle if I knew where they were doing gens.
True, yeah.
Like,
Plus, I mean, to be fair, I think the secondary attribute of Tinkerer was actually very viable on Slinger because he's kind of an interesting killer because when you take away the terror radius,
mm,
he can do a lot of things because it's a very quick reaction that you need to actually see what he's
yes.
doing. Like
Hmm.
Huntress, you hear her ready up and
And
you
you
can
hear her
see it
lullaby.
coming, right? Exactly. Whereas with Slinger, if you lose the terror radius and you
There's
turn around
nothing.
the wrong corner, yeah, if he readies up his gun and he shoots correctly, there's no reaction to that, which again probably ties into the thing, the fact that people don't really enjoy that counterplay,
Yeah.
but it's very viable. I kind of feel like, I mean, I used to run Tinkerer on Deathslinger because of the fact of catching people off guard.
Hmm.
Like even mid chase. I think that is another. I mean, kind of off topic here, but I think especially after playing Blight a lot, I think a lot of people don't realize is that Tinkerer is there for partially information. It's
Hmm.
it's to tell you like
Yes.
where is
100%.
vital. But if I'm mid chase with someone, for example, I'm on like Shelter Woods,
Hmm.
and I'm looping someone in Shack as Blight, and someone else just proc Tinkerer halfway across the map. I have no red stain. I have no terror radius. I can like use that mid chase to my advantage,
Hmm.
and survivors have complete control over like when I get to do that, right? So
Yes.
although it's not like guaranteed to get you a down, it
It
can actually
helps.
yeah, that alone can be kind of make or break in situations.
And then on top of that, let's say that you do lose your terror radius due to Tinkerer mid chase. What if there's another survivor nearby that's completely unaware of your presence now?
This
Like
is
you were
it as
mid chase
well.
with
Yeah.
somebody else. Now you can switch targets. You're like, well, this guy's in Shack. I have him injured,
Hmm.
but is it worth the down? Like, am I going to get him in enough time? Well, let me go to
Yeah.
this guy. If I hit him, he's
He
got
has
nothing
no
around
idea.
him. He has no idea. And
Exactly.
the closest places for him to go is a jungle gym. I can go hit him. He's not going to make it to the jungle gym before I go for the second hit
Hmm.
because he's not going to know what's coming. So you can switch targets with that knowledge. You can be, oh, Tinker went off, and he doesn't know. I can get him. So that's
Hmm.
useful in that situation, and that's why it was actually pretty useful on Deathslinger a lot of the time too, because you're not just getting value of knowledge, you're not just losing the red stain, but you could be losing the red stain in a situation that is actually pretty vital for you
Hmm.
with Deathlinger. I know a lot of people argued with me. They were like, Tinker's not that good because you're 110 movement speed, you're not going to be able to get over to the other gen to pressure it. And it's like, well, sometimes that's not what I'm using Tinkerer for.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Sometimes I'm using it just to know, okay, they're doing that gen over there. I'm chasing this person here. I see another person over there. All right, I know where all of them are now. I'm not afraid to lose that gen because it's not my prerogative right now. I have 3 or 4 other gens in my general location I'm trying to keep eyes on and tabs on, but now I know I have my information I need, and I get the advantage of the lack of a terror radius. So it's kind of like
Yeah,
you're the thing that's great about Tinkerer is super strong, and it's just because you have those options, you can weigh them, and that's why I thought on Deathslinger this is actually not that bad of a perk. Everybody argued with me. It's just like it's like it. I mean, you could debatable be like, well, is it the best perk? Maybe not, but I think it's actually
yeah,
a
probably
really
not.
strong
Yeah.
perk on him. Like, could you
Hmm.
put a better perk on him? Maybe, but I still think I swear to this day, I still think Tinkerers is super valid and valuable on him. And that's what Tinkerers
I
should
agree.
be for. It should be for the characters that don't have the map pressure. The problem is
Hmm.
when you have characters with map pressure, Tinkerers strength and power kind of goes almost to the unbroken to the like the broken territory, like putting it on Blight, for instance. It's kind of broken on Blight, if we're being
Hmm.
honest. It's kind of broken on Spirit. It's kind of broken on Nurse. I know people argue also, like, it's not that good on Nurse because they hear you coming. And it's like, you know how many people I've grabbed off of gens with Tinker or Nurse, and I'm not a good Nurse player. I've grabbed
Yeah,
so
yeah,
many people, I've like, especially in indoor buildings, they have no idea it's coming most of the time. They just hear
for sure.
you screaming, and they're like, oh, well, I should be safe. I don't hear him coming towards me. Oh, too late. I'm getting grabbed.
But then I kind of feel like that ultimately sums up exactly what is wrong with balance in the game, right?
Yeah.
Is that you're looking at it and you're like, which killers have really good map mobility? Well, the three best killers in the game.
Mm
Which ones have the ability to ace chains? You know, to kind of theoretically end chases the quickest?
hmm. Mm
Also, those three killers, right?
hmm. Mm hmm.
And you look at like their synergy with perks like barbecue. Barbecue on Blight, I can hook someone and get in a chase with someone on the other side of the map
Within like
in
a few
like
seconds.
a few seconds.
Mm
What, you know, there is practically, even, you know, mother daughter like Spirit is not getting there as quickly as Blight is. Neither is Billy,
hmm.
like
Mm
actively into a chase and injuring.
hmm. Mm hmm.
And I kind of feel like to an extent, I like kind of going off of Fusion's point in chat. I feel like the biggest problem with the game is actually less so the killer balance,
And
and
maps.
it's more so the maps. Yeah,
Mm hmm.
because it shouldn't ever really like it makes sense from a balance perspective and from a fun perspective, more importantly, that there should be maps that skew in either way, right? If
Yes.
every map in the game was perfectly fair, everything was designed to be kind of like
It'd be
clinically,
homogenous.
it would be boring, right?
Mm hmm.
So it makes sense that you go into a map and you're like, oh, it's a bit of a difficult map, or you go into another one and say, this is gonna be really good for me, you know,
Mm
cough cough, Shelter Woods, Blight. But like the biggest, you know, but it takes it too far. You have maps like, you know, Slinger on Mother's Dwelling,
oh.
practically GG,
Oh.
right? Practically
I
GG.
can't tell
Um,
you how many times, man.
right, it's terrible, right? But then you have like you have kind of like this tertiary group, which is what like you know, Blight and Nurse on maps like Hawkins, right,
mm hmm.
or Larry's,
Mm hmm.
which is like the map isn't inherently theoretically bad for them because they can still get around. It's just it's not necessarily fun. Because it kind of it reduces most of their
It
ability
reduces
to
your
use their
effectiveness.
powers, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and so if I can't use my power as a killer with the power, then it makes the game boring.
Yeah,
But
because you're
but
kind of
you
like,
know,
because that's the thing about killers. The fun thing about a killer is being able to utilize your power as much as possible in the game. And,
right,
and I
exactly.
always hate, and this was kind of like my problem when Trickster came out. Everybody, like, there were so many people who were like, well, you don't always want to use your power and blah 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 blah. Sometimes you want to like hold it, like use it to bait. It's like, yeah, but I'm using it to bait after I've chased a survivor around one rock 6 times.
Yeah, right.
It's like that's not baiting at that point. It's just like I'm just getting
Yeah.
fucking looped, bro, and I can't do
Mhm.
anything about it because I can't hit him, and I'm trying to mind game him, and this motherfucker doesn't. He's not. He's aware. He's not one of the ones who isn't looking with his camera and not behind him. I don't run
Mhm.
into those types of survivors that often. I run into the ones that actually know what they're doing more often than not. So it's a
Mhm.
little. It gets a little frustrating when you hear like, "Well, just don't use your power, forehead." It's just like, no, that's not the point. The killer should, at all times, almost every time in most circumstances, be able to utilize their power in some way, even if it's not
In
in the
some
most
way, yeah.
lethal way. Sometimes you're using it maybe to zone. Sometimes you're using it maybe to bait. Sometimes you're using it maybe to mind game. It depends on the situation.
Yeah, for sure.
But in some cases, you just don't get to use it at all. And you're just like, well, I'm glad that I get to play this fucking game.
Well, well, I mean, I'm assuming at this point you played Blight on RPD, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
I think that is a. I mean, RPD
I
is
can tell
is
you
the
how many
yeah
times I have played. I get Haddonfield and RPD even without offerings like 1,000 times. It is literally a joke on this stream. It's like, oh, Fulmey's playing on Haddonfield again for the 80th time. It's just like, yeah, I'm back on this fucking map again. I would rather play
yeah.
Larry's and Hawkins at this. Like, I like actually playing Blight on Larry's and Hawkins. I
Mhm.
actually don't mind it. And the thing is, like, I actually haven't done bad on RPD as Blight. In most cases, I actually still get a 4K, but it is excruciating to do it. It's
Okay,
not even fun.
this is exactly what I'm saying, right? Is like is the fun of the map being prioritized over is it actually effective, right?
Hmm.
Like, yeah, I mean, Blight can operate around RPD the same way that Huntress and Deathslinger can operate their way
But
around
it's
it.
so
But is it
limited.
fun?
No.
It sucks. It
There are
always
just
sucks.
some
I
places you
that
can't use your power. There's just some you can't because you're going to
totally
hit the door
totally.
frame 8 fucking times
Well, I
because
mean,
your
like,
hitbox is so big.
yeah, it's so massive, especially after the 5.0 the 5.2 update. But like,
Hmm.
kind of there's the specific spot. In fact, you know where the trying to think how to describe it. You know that really like egregiously long table loop
Yes. Yes, the
in like
Leon's desk. You're talking
that
about
one,
Leon's
right?
desk.
That
Yes.
one. So if a survivor runs through there and so they're on the pallet side and
It's
they
not
take
the
the
only
door to
one,
their
by the
right.
way. There's
Oh no,
two
no,
other
totally,
there's two
totally.
others like it in that map.
Oh, totally. Yeah. But say that there's a survivor and they're there and they're next to the pallet, right?
Hmm.
You rush after them to try and catch them. They
Hmm.
take a right, into a left,
Hmm.
forwards, into a right.
Hmm.
So for a survivor, that's just a case of like moving around it, and then they make like 3 turns in a row.
Yeah, that's
As a
holding
blight
W and
player,
turning your mouse like a few times and maybe
right,
touching your A and D key like maybe two to three times.
right, which is totally fair. I mean,
Yeah, that's
I'm
fine.
not dogging on that. It's totally
Yeah.
fine. But from my from a blight perspective, I've got 5 rushes. I've got 5, and that is not even including getting stuck on doorways and wasting one. I've got 5 opportunities, 5 directions I can change basically, and there is no way that
Just
I
run
can catch them.
the additional lethal rushes, forehead.
The adrenaline about, yeah, okay, buddy, yeah, okay. But yeah, I think like that is fundamentally what I think is the biggest flaw in this game right now, which is
Yes.
funny because it's also its biggest strength. I think the reason why people have so much time in this game, and the reason why people genuinely enjoy it, kind of whether they realize it or not, is because of the random generation in the maps, right?
Mm.
I think that's what always makes things feel different because you never really play a game where on Macmillan or Autohaven, obviously, things like RPD and,
It's
and
not the
Hawkins are a
same
lot
as
more
like
limited.
yeah, it's not the same as playing like a Macmillan map is not going to be the same as a Auto Haven map, and an Auto Haven map is not going to be the same as like playing on like a Coldwind map. Yeah, I get
True,
what
but
you're saying.
then, even then, if you go to the same map like Gas 7, right?
Hmm.
You're never really going to be in a situation. There's certain things that will always spawn exactly where they're going to spawn. So,
Yes.
for example, like the car loop
Check.
with the sign and shack, but like the actual trash tiles in between will always be different. It's not like you ever go to a situation and you know exactly what you've got around you to use. You've
Hmm.
always got to be kind of aware and thinking, is there a dead zone over there from survivor perspective as well? Is there a dead zone? Is
Hmm.
that looking really good? What kind of tiles do I have? I think that's what makes people come back to the game. Like, imagine if we were playing. Okay, so imagine like Cowshed for a second, right?
Yeah.
Imagine if Cowshed had the same Longwood Jungle Gym spawns
Hmm.
every single time in the same place, right? How boring would that get?
It's
But at
already
least,
boring as it is, man. Don't
oh
even get
yeah,
me
yeah,
started.
it's already, yeah. That's kind of my point
We
is
can
that like it
argue
would
about
be.
Coldwind regardless of random generation.
Oh yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah.
boring
It's
in
totally different
general,
subject.
but
Yeah,
yes, I get what your point
yeah,
is.
yeah. The main point is that like I feel like that is the biggest selling point as to why people love playing this game and why they come back to it.
Yeah.
However, it's also the biggest problem because you have certain maps that obviously just haven't had the same kind of design kind of philosophy go into them, right? I mean, RPD being the most obvious offender, but you have things like Red Forest, where although in theory it's a cool map concept in the middle
Yeah,
of
yeah, it
nowhere, it's one
is.
of the larger maps. In practice, again, unless you're one of those killers that is already very strong on any map, you will suffer, right?
Yes.
Trapper on Red Forest, unless he's got maybe some tar bottles and survivors aren't looking where they're going,
Yeah,
he's
maybe you get
screwed.
him in a basement, and then you can.
Right, exactly. But again, you're having to really focus on, like, if you get someone in the basement, you camp them, right, and
Yeah,
then
you
you
have
try
to.
and
You
win.
you literally
Um,
got no option.
yeah. And then what about like Legion? Like you stab someone, you get some information. I can't actually get over there,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, they're
So
on
I
the other side of
yeah,
the map, and you're like
right,
the killer instinct's going off, and you're just rushing over there, and you're like, I don't even know why I'm doing this. I'm not gonna get them. I should have just stayed on the person I
precisely,
hit.
exactly.
Yeah, it's really frustrating. I think that's the biggest thing, and this has always been that's always been a thing that I've argued is the maps are the probably the biggest issue because we can talk about like things like gen speed and stuff like that, but
Hmm.
ultimately gen speed I think is inexorably tied to the way that maps are designed, and not just map size, but the tiles within the map themselves too.
Yeah,
Sometimes you can have a map where there's literally very little resources and the survivors are just screwed because they got nothing, i.e., Shelter Woods. Um,
fantastic map, love
and then
it.
you have places like Gideon where it's drop it
Yeah,
and forget it.
mhm.
Who loops on
So many
Gideon?
resources.
Who loops on Gideon? If you're looping on Gideon, it's just because you're just trying to have fun. If you're trying to win on Gideon though, you don't loop. You drop the
What?
pallet.
Why would you need to
Yeah, why
though?
would
You
you
know,
need to?
it's the kind of thing like obviously we all know that, like, the whole W gamer meta is not exactly the most interesting thing,
No, it's
right?
not.
But if you look on a map like Gideon specifically, I can't blame him. Like why
No,
would
you
they have
can't.
any need to want to
Why?
loop
Why
things?
would
It's
you?
incredibly unsafe, and you have so many pallets. Like the amount of times that in fact, if you've never tried it, I'd highly recommend it. The bulldozer build, right?
Mhm.
The Compound 33, the Iridescent
I
Blight
did that.
Tag,
I did that.
yeah, Enduring Spirit Fury, Brutal Strength, and Zancian Tactics, right?
Mm.
Try and break every pallet unbreakable in the
It's
game.
hard. It's hard.
It's genuinely, even with a build with a character that is specifically designed to just chew through them, it's practically impossible.
Yeah, within the amount of time that most games last, especially now with SBMM, it's like 10 minutes per game now, at most. Sometimes you'll get a game like if you're playing Twins, the game can go on longer because Twins just naturally elongates the game based on the
I'm
way your
still
kit
playing my
works.
Twins BTB game.
Oh my god. Um, but those are the types of things that are happening in this game. The game is like, and honestly, Scott John said this. He was just like, I don't know why everyone's sweating just because SBMM when you get nothing out of it. And I'm like, yes. Why are people all of a sudden running Prove Thy? Like, I knew this was gonna happen too. I even said this. I was like, Prove
Oh
Thyself
yeah,
was
for sure.
broken before SBMM, and I know this because I've gone up against teams that did it, but it was rare. It was not that often. But now everyone, I am getting at least 1 to 2 proves a game. I'm getting at least 1 to 2 BNPs. I had a game where literally almost everyone ran a BNP. Everyone. Because
Okay,
the name of the game
yeah,
right now, get gens done and get out. And most of these survivors are
yeah.
terrible at looping. They're awful. Because I get them within a minute, like 30 seconds to a minute. And I'm like, well, this guy's not that good. I fucking got him so quick. But it doesn't matter. 2 gens just popped on the other side of the damn map.
Right.
Because they're
This,
running the
this,
best add-ons and perks for that.
Totally. But okay, so that is what I think I've figured out is ultimately the biggest flaw with skill-based matchmaking, which, to be honest, I didn't realize initially.
Mm-hmm.
Was I was kind of thinking, if I'm going to go against good players every game, then and if I'm a good killer, then it makes a lot of sense, right? Whether it's
That's
sweaty or
not
not,
true
at
though.
least I'm going against good people,
That's
right?
not true.
How okay? The problem being though is that you've got to remember that does being the highest level of skill-based matchmaking mean that you're good?
No.
Or does it mean that you're effective, right?
Nope.
There's a difference. So what I've realized is I've been getting less and less people that actually want to loop, and the juicer, kind of
No, they
survivors, right?
pre-drop.
The
They pre-drop in
right,
W.
okay. This is the problem. As soon as they've run out of pallets and they don't have any dead, hard, unbreakable, whatever left, they have no idea what
They
to
don't know
do.
what to do. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. This
There's no like
current
palette
meta.
preservation. There's no like the people at the highest level of skill based matchmaking on both sides. More than likely, it's not just a survivor issue. Are people that are just very effective at winning, which
Mm-hmm.
doesn't. It kind of sounds contradictory, but the people that are very effective at winning aren't necessarily people that are good at the game, right?
Yeah.
If I go in with a 4-man Swift with brand new parts every time with styptics and an anti-hemorrhage
Mm-hmm.
and dead hard iron will, borrowed time, unbreakable, whatever, right?
Adrenaline, all the
I'm
stuff.
probably gonna, yeah, I mean, a load of adrenaline at the moment. I'm probably gonna win practically every game,
Mm-hmm.
right? I don't have to be any good at it. I can
Yeah.
pre-throw pallets the entire time. And so I think that is something that, to be honest, I didn't really consider, is that, like, typically speaking, if you're a very, very good looper, right? The kind of like comp loopers, the ones that like participate
They
in
know
one v
how, yeah,
ones,
exactly. They know how to conserve resources. They know how
conserve
to
resources,
do
right?
that.
Exactly. And so but the thing is, because they're most of those people probably aren't running full meta. They
No,
probably got bored of it. They want to run something else, something more interesting. But those people, the ones that loop for 4 to 5 gens, probably don't survive every match
no,
because
they
they
don't.
loop for 4 to 5 gens and they get face camped, or they just die and the rest of the survivors leave them. Which is another thing I've been seeing, a lot of people just leaving
Yeah,
survivors
people
behind.
just leave. People just leave now.
But
They don't
the
stay.
problem is that is increasing their MMR, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter about team play anymore. It just matters about you, and
Your
it kind of comes
individual
back to the
skill.
point,
Yeah.
right? And it kind of comes back to this point that the point that Scott made, is that, like, why are people trying so hard for something that has no benefit, right? It would make sense if skill-based matchmaking and if the MMR score was connected to your rank, then although I wouldn't agree with it, it would make sense as to why people sweat so
Sweat so
much to
much.
get those
Yes.
wins,
Yes. But
right?
you
But
ultimately
you
don't know
don't.
your number. So what does it
Right,
matter?
exactly. So it doesn't mean anything anyway. And then as extension, all that's going to happen is that, like, the higher MMR you get on killer or survivor side is going to make the game less and less interesting, as far as I'm concerned.
It
Because
already
um,
has. It's already
well, yeah,
started making it that way.
I
Because
mean,
every game is the same as far as like perks now. I hardly ever if
yeah,
I literally I think I've run into like maybe one person that used power struggle and I let that guy go. I was like, "Bro, I love you. You get to
same.
go."
Yeah, I saw someone earlier today that was running, what was it, Ace in the Hole, and I was like, no way, hatching you, dude.
Yes.
I genuinely, I get so ecstatically happy when I see one perk that's different,
Yeah.
because like,
And not even
like,
bad.
like,
They're not even
like,
bad perks either. They're just not meta and they're just
no,
not the
totally.
strongest, but they're
Well,
they're still useful perks for
there,
particular
there, there there are
situations.
totally there are many options of perks in the game, killer and survivor side. That doesn't, killer side, which is probably the one I can speak more on.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be Tinkerer, Ruin, Undying, Pop, right?
Yeah, and I don't
Or
run that on
Corrupt or
Blight.
anything like
I don't
that.
run any of
You
that on
don't
Blight.
have to.
No,
You
you
can be a
don't.
very effective killer. I mean, people that have kind of ever seen me play would know that I never, like especially pre MMR, I would never run those,
I
but
made
yet
you do
somehow
it.
win.
That's the only reason you did. I
Yeah,
made you do it
yeah. There was also
just to
you.
make you
Yeah.
evil.
But like it's not the way that I like playing. But at the same time, I still win the majority of the matches. So how is that possible, right?
Yeah.
Because there's so many other options. Bitter Murmur. You have things like I'm All Ears. You have things
Lethal
like
Pursuer,
Lethal Pursuer.
Barbecue,
Exactly. There's many options, and same with Survivor side. There's a lot of really cool perks that are just.
Shadowborn.
I mean, Shadowborn, obviously the greatest perk in the game. Totally not addicted, but yeah, there's so many options, and I feel like it's the biggest problem is that I think at the highest level of MMR, you're not typically seeing people that are necessarily very skilled at the game. It's more so they're very effective, right?
Yes,
And it's kind
yes.
of like,
They're very gen
without
efficient, is what I like to say.
very gen efficient, yeah,
They're
exactly,
gen
and very kind
efficient,
of like
but they're not resource and loop efficient. They're not good at those particular categories, but they know how to spread. They know how long they need to take on certain things. They know when to go for saves, when not to.
yeah.
They know those things. They know those mechanics of the game. But if you put them in a loop, most of the time they're not going to do well. I think I had one game where I went up against a survivor and they were really good at looping. And they were it was one of the few times the good looper actually escaped and everybody else died.
Mhm.
Because the others weren't gen efficient, but they also weren't good at looping. So I was able to murder all the other ones, and then the
And
one
not catch that
and not
person.
catch that one person because I was like, I'm not gonna go after you. Like this is RPD, and you actually know what you're doing. You know what loops are good, what loops are effective. You know how to avoid Blight's lethal rush hits on certain areas. You're really good at using the shoulder tech, and you're really good at like doing the spin because sometimes you get locked in an animation with the
Mhm.
lethal rush. So a survivor can easily easily spin you. Like spinning a blight is much easier than spinning every other character, to be quite honest.
Yes,
It's
yeah,
it's
because
more about
they
patience because you're locked
yeah,
into a movement and an animation. Whereas with every
yeah.
other killer, you just wait for somebody. You stand still. You just stop. You're just like, all right,
Blight can't do that. Yeah,
bam.
it's true. It's because the velocity keeps carrying you, and unless you collide with them at the beginning of that like velocity curve,
Mm-hmm.
you will just scoot past them, and there is no way of kind of like heading back to hit them, right?
Exactly.
Like when you spin an M1 killer like Trapper for example, he can just turn 180 and slap you in the back. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
Blight can't do that. He's practically got a 90-degree angle on
Mm-hmm.
either his left or right, which is why I came up with the technique of the shoulder flick,
Mm-hmm.
to try and alleviate the problem with Blight being spun so quickly.
Yeah,
Um,
that's the one thing I'm still really bad at handling is getting spun as a blight.
it's tough.
It's really tough,
The timing is so specific.
and
I
you have
always
to be
try and tell
patient.
people
You have to be super patient.
it's a lot of patience, but it's always the one question that I get the most is the timing because it's so hard to teach
It
people.
is.
And because you know, like admittedly, I've got so many hours in the character now. It makes I do make it look easy, but there's a specific point where basically like the first frame or the first couple of frames of his animation,
Because your
it's like
hitboxes get so
your
big
hitbox
for
is
some.
massive, but
Yeah.
it's that tiny little part, and
Mm-hmm.
if you miss that timing, you will swing past them. You will miss them every
Mm-hmm.
time.
I went up against a buddy of mine, Firewood. He's a comp player,
Hmm.
and his team, and they were spinning me a lot.
Yeah,
And
it's tough.
I was like, God damn, they're just way too good at this. I can't.
Yeah.
And I love chasing Firewood because he's hard to chase, and that's like
Hmm.
I one time threw a whole game just to chase him. I was like, even if
Yeah.
I don't kill him, and I ended up killing him, but
I've had the same thing. There's been certain people that have come into my games and I've been like, damn, this person is so fun. In fact, there's this one Ace Visconti. It's always the Ace Viscontis. I swear
yeah,
to
it
God,
is.
they are
It is. I
professionals.
swear to God, they
Always.
are.
But like I remember being in this game and it was on stream, and I basically said to chat, I was like, I'm gonna throw this game because this guy is fucking fun to chase. You know, like
Yeah.
he was really quick to react to things. He was you know, paying attention. He was conserving pallets.
Hmm.
But kind of onto the last subject again. I think the problem being though is that like why, and you know, this is kind of in the survivor's favor, and it's kind of like, you know, looking at it from their perspective,
Hmm.
is why would they have any reason not to pre-throw and run meta, right?
Yeah. There's no
Although it's more
punishment.
interesting, in my opinion, obviously it's very personal. It's more, you know, interesting for me to conserve pallets and to try and play around things. If you're winning the game, why would you not just use
Do
the
that
easier
thing.
technique,
Exactly.
right?
Yes. Like it's
And so
hard
I
to be
think
mad
I
at
can't blame them.
survivors. Yeah, it's really hard
Yeah,
to be mad
totally.
at survivors. It's very difficult because is it frustrating? Yes. Is it boring? Yes, 100%. But is it
But okay,
effective?
is it wrong?
Yes.
Yeah,
It's not
exactly.
wrong. There's nothing
No,
wrong with it.
no, exactly. It's really effective, and it gets them the win. So,
Yeah.
like at the end of the day, can you complain at someone for doing something that makes them win?
Exactly.
Like
It's
at
like
that
getting mad
point,
at a killer for tunneling and camping. If the tunneling and camping is effective, especially in most situations,
yeah, it's the same problem, right?
it's the same problem.
Although it's not fun for me to get tunneled off first hook,
No.
if that killer wins, then you know, like in any other game, a win is considered a good thing, right? You're kind
Yeah.
of like aiming for that win. And so if a killer decides to proxy camp, or, you know, I mean, you know, camping someone till death is not really that effective. Tunneling
No,
is
it's
though.
not. Tunneling is.
Um,
Yes, yes it is.
Tunneling is very effective. If
Tunneling and
you've
slugging is probably more effective than
massively,
camping.
yeah, camping is only really there if you need to secure health states, but even then it's rare that you can do that knowing the other three survivors are off
Or
doing
doing
gens,
something,
right?
yes, exactly.
Right.
Unless they're very
um
altruistic and stupid and you can take advantage of that. That's the only time
yeah,
that camping is
and
actually effective.
right. So the problem exists on both sides because the killer can tunnel and it will make it extremely unfun for the survivor. But then the survivor can also pre-throw and do basically nothing. Then, you know, and
And
have the
get
killer just
rewarded.
kind of follow up. And yeah, for the same problem, and then it's no fun for the killer. And I
Hmm.
feel like that is something you can't blame the players for doing. If
You
I
have
get
to
tunneled
blame
by someone,
behavior.
sadly, yeah, it's a balance problem, right?
Hmm.
Because it's not the player's fault. If a survivor wants to pre-throw the whole game and then they survive, you know, fair play to survivor. They did what they did to survive. It's
Hmm.
same as the killer. If, you know, like, although I may have had a short game because I got tunneled off first hook, that killer still may have won the game. In fact, especially if my, you know, teammates weren't doing gens at the time,
Mm.
and I'm out the game at 4 gens remaining, the rest of the team is fucked, right?
Yeah. Or let's say he's pressuring while in chase. Like he veers off for a second, hits somebody, then comes back to you and maybe catches you off guard because you weren't expecting him to veer back in. Sometimes
Right,
it's
exactly. Yeah.
beneficial to do that, especially on Blight. Sometimes like that's a tactic on Blight. Sometimes you just leave a loop as Blight, and then the survivor's like, okay, well he left me. I guess he doesn't want to. And then all of a
The
sudden you
old
come
out and
flying
in
back
technique.
in and you
Yeah.
instantly
Yeah,
hit them
exactly.
because
Exactly. Yeah,
they don't
the
expect
old
it.
in and out.
Yeah, the old in and out. The old in and out.
Exactly. It's incredible, and you'd be surprised how frequently that works, especially with the Eerie tag,
Mm-hmm.
because like no other killer really leaves as far away. Like
Mm-hmm.
visually, the survivor sees them. Like the spirit can fake going away, but they won't see them go away,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Whereas the blight, they physically they lose the chase to get the points for chaser. The killer leaves, and then by the time you've kind of in that situation, probably kind of like cooled down a little bit, you've calmed, you've started healing. He's back at you, at like Mac
Yep.
9.
Yep. Yes, he is. All right. Well, I feel like we got way off track, but I felt
Yeah, we
like that.
totally did. Yeah,
I
my
felt
bad.
like that was a no. You're fine. It's an interesting conversation, and it's one that we come back to from time to
Yeah.
time. But I felt like it was necessary to kind of like we can have that conversation right now. But let's go ahead. Let's try to get back on track. Let's talk about the changes with Plague. Now, I actually haven't gone over these too much because when the Deathslinger
Okay.
changes were announced, it was one of those things. But I saw the general gist of what was happening. But we'll go over it and read it real quick because the Deathslinger changes were the things that concerned me the most. I'm not really a Plague player, but they were saying that they first looked at infected objects previously interacting with something that would cause you infection to increase faster. We're adding additional penalties to interacting with something that is currently infected, meaning your infection will increase faster than before. Increase the base infection during objects like generators from 35 to 40 seconds. And that's pretty useful for like it especially when it comes to well, actually, hold on. Let me get through the rest of this. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't want to go too far. Next, we turn to a Vile Purge. The Plague takes a massive hit to her movement speed while she's on cooldown. After purging or canceling her purge, we've increased her movement speed from 2.3 to 3.6 while on cooldown. This will cause her to lose far less ground while she does so. One of the things that we felt really bad for the killer was when you let go of your power button a little too soon, causing your power to be canceled entirely. Now tapping the button or letting go before the minimum threshold will cause your power to continue charging until the minimum amount has been reached. Basically, it works like the Huntress Hatchet. So basically, like when you pull up a hatchet, you can immediately let go and it puts it away. It's not like you get stuck in the animation and you can't get out of it within a certain amount
Yeah.
of time. So basically, they're increasing the infection rate, which is going to be good. They're increasing her ability to move in particular states
Hmm.
where she was not able to move, like they're giving her a cancellation button, which is very good. And finally, they increase the amount of time it takes to actually cleanse yourself from 6 seconds to 8 seconds. So, Plague getting a lot of love here, a lot of love in the exact opposite direction of Slinger. Slinger
Yeah.
getting pounded to the ground, beaten up. The bullies are taking his lunch money, and Plague is the queen of the ball. She is the prom queen at this point. She is getting all the love, all the attention. Give her her tiara. She's good to go. I honestly don't see anything wrong with these changes. I mean, there could be a potential where she might become a little oppressive.
I feel like that as well when I first read them, because to be fair, I think the problem with Plague is that there's very few Plague players.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know any streamers or kind of like high
Pixelbush is the only one that I know that is in love with Plague, next to
but he's more of a
Twins. He's more of a
twins.
Twins
Yeah,
player,
for
but he
sure.
does
Yeah,
love
yeah, yeah,
Plague.
yeah, for sure. But like there's no kind of like a high profile twins no sorry, Plague mains, are there,
Yeah,
really?
like Linksy is
Um
a high-profile Twins main.
Right, exactly. And so I kind of feel like the problem there is that a lot of people maybe don't know how effective Plague is. Like a high, like when you see a very good Plague. I mean, like Otstava's win streak being a great example.
What
He was at
he
like
got like
what, over
200
100?
almost.
Yeah, it was insane. It was triple digits, right?
Yeah, it was triple
And
digits.
like compared to any other killer, he hasn't gone nearly that
No,
far
he
with any other
hasn't.
killer. Like Plague, when played effectively, and I understand that maybe he just didn't bother going that high with any other killer, but Plague just kept on crawling. And in a way, I kind of feel like It's an interesting change because I feel like for the vast majority of Plague players, it will be a very nice change because Plague can be kind of complicated to play.
Hmm.
There's a lot to kind of handle at once. The change to I think her kind of slowdown in her animation is going to be a nice one, kind of like a
Hmm.
reverse Pyramid Head situation.
Yes.
But in a like in a way, if you look at like the highest tier, and again, I know that they don't really base around those, but the highest tier of Plague players are absolutely oppressive as anything. Some
Oh
of the
yeah.
best killers in the game. I mean, even against very good survivor teams,
Yeah.
they can be tough.
I
And
think
so
Plague
making her
involves a
better,
lot of micro and macro, and that's what makes her so
yeah, which
complicated
is
for some people to
for
play.
sure. Which is why I'm not very good because
No.
I'm the kind of guy, I look at a wall and I headbutt, right? That's about as far
Yeah.
as my macro thinking goes.
I think that's the same thing with trap killer or trap players. I think plague and trap killers are very similar in that they have like and twins even. Twins is also a micro macro killer.
Yeah.
You have to there's a micro game within the game that you're playing, and then there's the macro game that you're playing, which is stop the survivors from doing gens and chase them. Uh Glida, thank you for coming in, by the way. But I think the plague changes are overall good, if not just a tad bit worrying about maybe being a little over oppressive. Um,
True, but
from
the thing is, I'd rather see her become slightly over
over
oppressive,
oppressive than
and to be
becoming
honest,
nothing.
probably, yeah, exactly. And to be honest, I'd rather see her get played more, right? Um, if it means that when you go against one, they're difficult to handle, so be it. As long as
Hmm.
there's more variation, I don't think there's ever going to really be any problem with that, unless they are truly horrendous to go against. And I don't really feel like anyone like truly hates playing against
No,
Plague. I'm sure there
no,
are people out there,
I'm
but
sure
not
there
to the
are.
same degree as Spirit and Slinger, right?
Yeah, yeah. Those were probably the top level of like at the top. So now the next person that people are going to complain about nerfs to is Blight.
Yeah.
So now that that's done. Now that it's Nurse and Blight are probably going to be the next targets
Awesome.
on the
Cannot
list.
wait.
Can't wait to have to hear people bitch about that. That's going to be fun.
I can't wait to go into the post game and if one thinks I'm J flicking.
Yeah. I literally had somebody accuse me of J flicking. I was like, bro, J flicking doesn't exist anymore. Where have you been? It's been months since that patch. I'd rather versus Plague
It's
than
been
most
so long.
killers. Yeah.
I get it on an almost daily basis. As people, in the post game, they're like, "Wait, hold on, are you J flicking? That's a bannable exploit." And I'm like, I'm sat there and I'm kind of thinking to myself, it's like J flicks have been gone since the beginning of May.
Yeah.
Um,
It's been
like,
half a year, bro.
come on, dude,
It's
please.
been half a
You know,
year. Can you like chill? Oh my god. People say I'm abusing JFlix on Billy because no one plays Billy anymore. There's no such thing as JFlix on Billy. What is
there
with
is
people?
there is a J flick on Pyramid Head though.
Yeah, but it's not reliable. It's absolute fucking tosh.
I mean, I feel like it is reliable if you practice enough. It's similar to the J flick though, right? When people first started to figure out that, again, this is going off topic, but when people first started to figure out that you could kind of like go anywhere with it, right? Like a theoretical 180 degree in a single frame. It was this kind of thing that like no one really thought was going to be. It was a cool technique when you pulled it off, but it was so hard to get the timing down that like no one really thought it was possible. At the very least, when I first discovered it, I was like, that was really
uh,
sick, but how do
I,
I repeat it?
I think the
Um,
issue with it is that with Blight, your speed makes up for if you miss a J flick. Your problem with Pyramid Head is it's really unreliable because you're hoping that the survivor is going to stand still long enough, or at least
to
you're
be
going
in
to
a
be able
spot
to
that's
land it.
behind you.
Exactly. They could
Yeah.
literally do any, it's the most easily avoidable thing, and
Yeah, yeah,
therefore
yeah.
isn't really worth it. Is it cool to land? Sure. Is it worth even attempting? No. I don't think it's even worth
No.
attempting. With Blight, it was worth the attempt in situations, especially if you were in chase and you're like, I really need to get this hit, and I'm at this particular loop, and he's really good. I'm gonna go for the J flick at this point because
Yeah.
it's the reward is enough. The risk reward is enough for me to say this is worth it. With Pyramid
Mhm.
Head, you can't really say that. It's not the same thing. I wouldn't say it's the same thing.
No, no,
That
I agree.
as somebody who loves Pyramid Head, and trust me, I thought about practicing it to make it work, but like the more I tried to do it, I was like, this is just like I'm just gonna lose. It's just that there's no reason for me to
Yeah,
do this. I can
but
literally just put them in a situation where I make it easier for myself to do.
oh,
It's way
for
better.
sure. But I think the main difference in perspective is that like from the categorical blind man that I am,
Mm.
anything that I can do, it doesn't matter if it's going to lose the game. If it looks juicy, then it's worth going for, right? Like it
Okay,
doesn't matter if I
okay.
miss
That's
10
fine.
shots on Pyramid Head, right?
That's a
When you
different
do
perspective. Then
hit that one,
yes.
yeah, for sure, for sure.
I can agree with that. Like, is it cool to land? If your main goal is like, I don't care if
Landing
I
Pyramid
lose,
Head
I'm
J
gonna land
flick.
this pyramid at J Flick. I'm gonna be fucking awesome. I'm putting it in my montage, and I don't care if I got a 1K. I got a one hook 1K.
That's what I'm saying.
Screw
That's
it.
it does.
I'm doing it.
Yeah, but like, what does it matter, right? Like,
Mhm.
yeah, 4 people may have escaped, but did any of those 4 people land a 180 single frame Pyramid Head flick? I don't think so.
I don't. Yeah, exactly. You could
I don't think
throw
so.
that in the montage. People will look at that video and be like, "Yeah, you did that, but you just got your ass handed to you." It's like, I don't care, bro. I got the J Flick Pyramid Head. What are you gonna
Doesn't
do about
matter.
it?
Doesn't
Finger
matter.
guns. Pew pew pew. Oh my god. Okay, let's now that we've discussed the plague changes, let's go ahead and
Mhm.
move on to the perk updates, the boon totem, and the like probably one of the bigger changes here too. I mean, there's a lot of big changes, but this is going to be one of
Mm.
the biggest is the hatch change. We'll get into that. Uh,
Yes. Yeah.
so first off, perks we'll cut through real fast. Windows of opportunity. I don't think anything really needs to be said on this. I think good change overall. Like, they're making it so you don't have a cooldown anymore, which I always thought was stupid to have
I
on Windows
agree.
of Opportunity. Like, why did you
Yeah, I
have
mean,
that?
it's the same as like Zanshin, right? Like when
Hmm.
they removed the Zanshin cooldown, it's like, well, it didn't become any more viable. It's still one of those perks. It's
Yeah,
just it was a nice quality of life thing.
yeah, it's a
Like
nice
there's no
QOL.
reason. Yeah, exactly.
There's no reason for it to have a cooldown. It's good that they did it. It makes it a little bit nicer to use, and I was using it for a while personally. Like even after 1,000 hours of Survivor, I was like, I love Windows of Opportunity. It's like it lets me know if especially if you're solo, because I was a big solo player for a long time. Did this jerk on my team use this palette way ahead of time?
Hmm.
Now I know he did, and I can just go to the next location. Windows of Opportunity, actually not that bad of a perk. I'm gonna say it.
Hmm.
I think Windows of Opportunity is a nice perk. Is it the best perk? No. But is it good
No,
and
but
a good utility perk? Yes.
yeah, for sure. And I think like the nice thing about Windows as well is that like it's incredibly good, kind of like Fang's perks for the most part, at teaching survivors what they need to do, right?
Mm.
Like the best thing you can do as a survivor is kind of like we are talking about before, is like preserving pallets, preserving resources,
Mm-hmm.
is like for example, you're a survivor that maybe, I mean, even me in most situations, I'm not that great a survivor, but what if there was this perfect setup, cough, you know, um fractured cowshed. But like
Mm-hmm.
with this, there's this perfect setup where like a long wall window goes straight into Shack and then straight into an LT, then goes back into another,
Jungle
long wall,
gym or
right?
something. Yeah.
Right, exactly, right. In that situation, if I know that information ahead of time, and you can see that with Windows,
Yeah.
that is so powerful. You never have to, if you're against the, like God forbid a Legion, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
a 5 gen chase right there. There's
Yeah.
nothing they can
They
do,
did nothing
assuming you
they
don't mess
could
up.
do.
Yeah, so like having that kind of information, it's great as a learning perk, and I feel like the cooldown may have put people off of wanting to use it because of that reason. That like as soon as they vault something, it's then gone,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. You don't get to see what's next, and
Yeah,
you're back to looking at you're back to kind of like scoping around, being like, oh god, where's the next vault? Where's the next pallet and stuff like that.
exactly. Yeah.
It's really it can be kind of frustrating.
Hmm.
All right, Repressed Alliance. We'll go and get into this real quick. What they're doing there is they are reducing the requirement for Repressed Alliance, which I like Repressed Alliance also.
Hmm.
I think Repressed Alliance is a cool perk, and I think you can be rewarded very heavily if you use it properly, or you can hurt your whole team if you use it improperly. So to
Also
me,
true.
I think,
But it's one of the only perks in the game. I mean, it's a direct counter to pop, right?
yeah,
Which arguably is like the most powerful
Killer
gen
perk. Yeah,
regression perk in the game, right?
yeah. Next to ruin.
Especially in like a 3 gen situation, if they've got pop, you're practically screwed, right?
Yeah.
3 survivors left, pop in a 3 gen, GG.
But let's say
Whereas
you
like
use Repressed Alliance and you
you can
have
actually take it away from them.
exactly, and then there's pressure on two other gens for the next few seconds that you can't use pop. And the
Totally.
majority of the time, you're not going to be able to get pop off in the time that Repressed Alliance goes away because you're going to be too busy worried about other things.
True, and it has synergy as well. I mean, have you ever tried using Blast Mine into Repressed Alliance?
Well, I haven't used it, but I've seen people use it, and I've
It's
thought about
gnarly.
using it. It's
It's
disgusting.
gnarly.
Now we can talk about Blast Mine later because I have my
Yeah, yeah.
problems with that particular perk. Where Repressed Alliance, you can be rewarded for good use. Blast Mine, you're just rewarded in general, and there's no bad to it, and I think that's irritating. As far as that perk is
The only
concerned.
bad is me personally going into a post game, seeing all 4 survivors having Blast Mine and laughing because I haven't kicked Gen since 2016.
Well, you're playing Blight. Like I still play other killers, so it's not good for me. Um, all right, let's get to Built to Last. This is one of the contentious ones for me personally. I think this was one of the ones that has me worried the most. Now, like I said, Washed came in, gave me the numbers on Built to Last with and without Streetwise in tandem. Now, my concern with Built to Last wasn't the
Right.
perk itself. My concern was the perk in conjunction with boxes, add-ons, and other gen progressive perks.
Hmm.
So what they did was now you can recharge and refill up to 99% of an item's charges after it has been used.
Yeah.
Up to that.
Hmm.
And it's refilled by 30, like each use of Built to Last reduces the number of charges refilled by 33%. So it does lose effectiveness over time. However, the amount of strength of that you get in the early game is what matters. A lot of games are decided more often than not in DBD. Sometimes there are games where you can get away with losing a lot of early game pressure and you get really lucky, or you have a really good idea, or you're able to pressure exactly what you need to do in the mid to late game and you can bring the game back. But a lot of games are decided in the early game. Sometimes from
Yeah.
spawn, you get like
Hmm.
Lethal Pursuer has opened everybody's eyes. Finally, a lot of people's eyes. Killer Mains already knew this from the get-go, but for people who didn't know, Lethal Pursuers opened a lot of people's eyes to, holy crap, there are 4 survivors on each corner of the map, and they're all next to a gen.
Yeah.
I'm
Hmm.
fucked.
Yeah.
That is
It's why I don't run
awful.
Lethal Pursuer on characters like Legion,
Yes.
because I don't want to go into the game knowing that it's GG.
Yes, exactly. Now, I run Lethal Pursuer on people like Pig, and I actually run it on Ghostface because it's
That's horrible. Why would you do that?
absolutely hilarious.
That's
They're just like, they don't see me coming, bro. Oh, I'm sorry, were you doing a gen? Grab. It's funny. It's funny. It's not the most effective perk, but it's a fun perk to use on characters like that because you can get sneaky little cheeky plays. That's the only reason I use it on them. But yeah, it's really awful. But the problem that I have with Built to Last, and it might not be this way, but it is my concern. It's not just toolboxes; it's medkits though. Medkits are going to be the biggest thing. Imagine people running Built to Last with a purple medkit with the best add-ons.
yeah.
Healing and gen related items are already extremely strong in this game. Or even
Mhm.
after the changes and nerfs to them, they're still strong. They're still super strong.
I mean, yeah, I still feel like controversially, a brown medkit is actually one of the best items in the game.
Oh no, it is. You know how many times like I'm just like I don't really feel like using a purple med kit. It doesn't like as when you play Survivor. I'm just like I'll just use a brown med kit with some decent add-ons, or maybe just the brown add-ons, and you still get what 2 health states out of that.
With a couple, yeah, with a couple add-ons,
With
yeah.
a couple add-ons, you can get 2 health states out of a brown. 2 health states is a big deal. It's not small. It's not a small thing. Like even the 1 health state is pretty good. But imagine you getting 2 health out of 1 brown. That is valuable. That is extremely valuable. especially
And
if you're
yeah.
using, and that's not even getting into the perks that increase the use of those items. Like,
Mhm.
imagine running Desperate Measures, Streetwise, Botany Knowledge, Self Care with any of those. Those increase the value of the item itself just on their own merits. And I was a little worried about toolboxes, but somebody went through and did the numbers, and they were like, it's only going to shave off maybe 5 seconds, which is
Yeah.
still kind of a big deal to me, but it is a little bit less worrying than I had initially intended or thought. I thought it was going to shave off maybe 10 to 15 seconds per, like, if you're using this box, this box, this box, but somebody did it with like,
As per survivor as well.
yeah, per survivor. My problem is built to last is going to be strong, especially stacked. Especially stacked.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be one of those perks that is going to take over the meta. I genuinely do.
Do you think?
I do. I 100% do. I said that about Prove Thyself. I said
Mhm.
Prove Thyself beforehand, before people started legitimately using it more and more. I said, Prove Thyself is broken. I've gone up against gen specific teams before the SBMM came in. And that wasn't that often, but the times that it did, I went as nurse. I've gotten to, it took me like almost a minute to find a survivor because they were playing really, really safe and hiding. And then they
Mhm.
finally started doing a gen. By the time I found the first survivor and started getting into the chase, I had 2 gens pop. Oh,
Mhm.
like right away, like within like the first like 30 seconds of the game. And then at that point, I had found the first survivor. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to lose. And then the next 2 gens popped. And I'm like, I'm barely even in this first chase. What the hell is going on? And then the next gen popped. And the game was over. And I think I maybe got like one hook. And then I looked at their perks and add-ons, and they were running like literally there was 2 Prove Thyself, resiliences, spine
Mhm.
chill. They were like running like leader, and they were running like all this other, well, leader doesn't really affect gens, but they were running like all these like speed up add-ons and perks and items, and it was massive. It was a massive like boon. Like, they just destroyed gens. They were like one of those teams, super gen efficient. They knew exactly where to go, how to handle it, and they got in and out. And I was the most depressed I had ever been in a DBD game. That was probably the most demoralizing I'd ever felt, because I was like, I'm nurse and I got destroyed.
Yeah.
Like, I'd never had that happen. Like, granted, that was my early days on nurse, but I felt like I was catching on to nurse fairly quickly. And I felt like pretty good because I was able to do a lot with Nurse in a lot of my games. That was one of the first games where I felt absolutely awful as a Nurse player. I was like, I feel miserable. This was not fun. And it
Mhm.
just kind of opened my eyes to the fact that you get enough decent like they were only running 2 Prove Thyself because they knew like at least 2 of them were going to be with one other person doing a gen at some point in time, and they were going to be able to bang through it as fast as possible. it
Mhm.
was it was the most disheartening feeling. And that's why I've always been, like I've been saying, I think there's a problem with general progression perks, and I think Prove Thyself is a big culprit. And then when SBMM came in, Prove Thyself started becoming more and more used. B&P started becoming more and more used. They were already used, but they have been so prevalent. I have never seen this many Prove Thyself and this many B&Ps in a long time. And it's almost every other game now. It's also offerings, map offerings too. I've been brought to Haddonfield, RCPD, and Coldwind so much now. It's like almost every other game I'm being brought to those maps, and it's frustrating.
Well,
So,
totally. But I kind of feel like to an extent it extends the conversation we had earlier.
hmm
That a lot of these people at the high MMR, they're not necessarily very very good at the game like MMR would kind of dictate.
hmm
It's the fact that they're very successful at escaping, and why are they very successful? Because of stacked brand new parts, prove themselves, and map offerings that favor them. Right.
yeah.
That's why they've got such a high score, is because they're just very good at escaping.
Essentially, it's boosting,
Yeah.
is what it is. It's you're not. It's not to say I'm not trying to like downplay the fact that they're efficient at what they're doing, because I'm sure
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
you could put like a group of survivors who doesn't know what they're doing, give them all those perks and add-ons, and they're gonna get their asses handed to them any day of the week. But as far as like resource retention and understanding maps and looping and how to do that, that's a part of the game they don't even care about. They don't even do. It's almost like that doesn't exist to them because they're just like,
Yeah,
well, I know how to do this. Why would I do that? I don't think I played a game that hasn't had at least one prove, and since SBMM came out, they just play insanely safe and AFK on gens. It's so boring. Yeah, that's my problem with it too. And like I said, we can't blame them for that exactly because it's in the game. It's effective.
it's effective.
It
Yeah,
wins them games. But at the same time, as a killer, it's boring as hell. It's like, why do I want to come into a game just to exist? I don't want to just exist. I want to be active. I want to be proactive. I want to feel like I have some agency in the game. And the problem with the
for
game
sure.
right now is it feels like the only people who have agency in the game are the survivors. Those are the only ones that have agency. We do not. It's really upsetting. Give me 1 second. I'll be right back. It'll take me like
No
just a
worries.
second. All right, I'm back. Sorry about that. I just had to take care of something real fast. But anyway, like I don't know how much you know about the built to last changes, but I guess what are your thoughts on them? Or what are your
I mean,
thoughts on built to last?
it's going to be a case of seeing where it goes. I think the thing to keep in mind is that a lot of people thought the same thing about Built to Last when it was first announced,
Mm-hmm.
and it didn't really end up having the repercussions that we thought it was going to have, right? So this could be a similar situation where it gets buffed, and then we're probably still not going to see it that often. Let's be real; it's probably still going to be a relatively uncommon one. Um,
Until
I
somebody
am
realizes.
until someone realizes maybe. I'm not entirely sure how strong it's going to be in the long run. And again, I don't really want to comment on it until I've seen it in PTB, which I believe
Mm,
is today, technically for me.
yeah, yeah,
I think. So yeah, I'm gonna have to wait to see how it feels in game or going against it.
gotcha. Yeah. So what I'm hearing is you're gonna get back on stream in like the next hour and do some PTB content.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, right after this, you're gonna be like, all right, I gotta go stream again. I'll be back. I'll see you later. But yeah, I don't know. I really this is the most worrying thing to me because of how like a lot of people are like, well, you have to go into a locker and blah 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 or whatever, and it's like, and that offsets it, and I'm like, I don't really agree. I don't think it offsets it that much.
I
Like,
mean, like how often as Survivor are you completely devoid of lockers, right? If you're doing your objective, which at High MMR everyone is anyway,
mm,
they're on a gen, right?
yeah,
How many gens in the map are more than
more than
5
likely against
meters
from a
away from
locker,
a locker,
exactly.
right?
Often
Even
you
if I
will
think
see
of
them
maps on like larger maps, even things like I
because
mean, I
there's
mean,
locker
you know,
tiles even.
yeah, yeah. This is kind of what I mean is that like most gens are placed inside of tiles or main buildings. Main
Hmm.
buildings are scattered, like practically littered with lockers
Hmm.
anyway. But if you think of like Red
Maybe if you're
Forest,
on
which I
swamp.
guess is one of the maybe if you're on Swamp, yeah, I guess Swamp is the one exception. But then Swamp is garbage and doesn't need to
Yeah,
be taken
swamp
into
is. Let's
consideration
just nuke
anyway.
that out of the game.
Yeah,
Honestly.
exactly. Just deleted. Yeah, job done. But if you think of like Mother's Dwelling, one of the larger maps in the game,
Lockers near
gens are
every
still
gen.
typically, yeah, they're, like the gens are still typically placed around tiles,
Hmm.
and tiles have lockers on them. So I'm working on a gen, unless there's a specific situation where there's someone hooked and there's ruin undying up, and you absolutely cannot leave that gen. But at the same time, it's either you jump in a locker and get that toolbox out or whatever, or the med kit, and then get back on the gen, lose like 2% of progress
And
because
then
it's
you
like two
gain
weeks
all that
away,
percentage back
and
plus
then you
some.
gain it back.
Yeah, I think you get a net gain, even if you
Yeah.
do with a net loss. I think it's going to be one of those things where, to me, a built to last is going to become, uh, I think, not necessarily upon release. I think a lot of people are going to look at it and be like, oh, this is going to have niche use and nobody's going to blah, 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 blah use it. And it's whatever. Because I've already had that argument with somebody. Somebody was like arguing with me. It's just like, oh, it's going to be niche. It's going to be niche. I was like, yeah, it probably will upon release. And then when people are going to realize, wait a second, some comp player or some really like high
Yeah.
profile like DVD streamer or content creator is going to notice how fucking ridiculous this is, and they're going to be like, I found a way to make this work effectively and efficiently, and it's not that hard. And then you're going to see, especially 4-man Swifts running this, like if not one, at least all of them.
Yeah.
And then you're gonna
But then, like,
see issues with medkits and toolboxes. I think medkits more than toolboxes, but you're gonna see. I think you'll see it.
possibly, I think at this point, I'm probably reluctant to believe it, but I'm almost tempted to say that at the very least, I'd be happy to see something that changes the meta. It's the reason why I was so excited with Undying, because Undying genuinely changed up the meta, and I
It
think
did.
that it did, and then it got changed. But I mean, it's still pretty good depending on the build and also the survivors. But the biggest problem I've always found with this game is how unchanging the meta
Meta
is,
is
right? At
yes.
least if it was like a yearly thing where every year or every 2 years, doesn't even matter at this point how long it takes. If the meta goes through a cycle, at least you're modifying and changing like a different way to play. But
Yes.
the average survivor in most situations, their build is consisting of Unbreakable, which has been in the game since I believe early
Mm-hmm.
2017.
Dead
It's
hard.
Dead Hard early 2017, BT early 2017,
Mm-hmm.
and what else is there? Maybe Sprint Burst
Sprint
is been there the
burst.
whole time. You've got
Adrenaline.
like Adrenaline's been there since launch. Like
Mm-hmm.
nothing has actually
Nothing's
challenged the
changed.
meta
Nothing's changed
at
it.
all, including Prove Thyself since early 2017. Like not a single perk has actually crept its way even remotely close. Whereas at
Mm-hmm.
least with Killer, you could say Undying, you could say things like Corrupt, which at least have happened. There's been these stages
Yeah,
of Killer
pop
meta.
was not a.
Pop, exactly as well, yeah.
Even
And
when I
then
was championing it before the buff, I was like, "This is actually not that bad of a perk, guys. It just needs a little love. It's actually pretty good for gen protection." And then they buffed it. And I was like, "Now it's very good for gen protection."
yeah, totally, totally. It's a case of like I would love to see, and it's I mean kind of extending to the whole boon totem thing. I'm hoping to see something that
Shake it
just
up.
modifies the meta. Yeah, just like
Hmm.
it doesn't have to be anything extreme, but something that just challenges people to want to run something else. So of course, it's going to be the people running the current meta, the 2017 meta, but then you could have
My
people running a new meta or something.
concern though is that
Yeah,
built to last isn't really going to, it's not going to, I don't think it's a meta shakeup, and I don't think it's going to modify the meta. My problem with it is just another thing that's adding on to the already gen heavy meta, because that's what the
yeah,
meta is. The meta is get gens done and get the fuck out. That's literally the meta. It's like get
yeah.
them done, get the fuck out. It's not let's get in chases, let's do this objective, we got to play this way. It's not like there's not any other additional thing to do. It's just do the gens, get out. Press W, pre-drop the pallet, waste as much time as you can, and then we'll get these first 2 to 3 gens done in the next like 40 to 80 seconds. So,
Yeah.
that's what it is. So I don't think built to last, outside of the fact that you're changing a perk out. I think that's all you're really doing. You're just replacing already existing perks with a perk that's essentially getting you the same result
Hmm.
in the same kind of meta. I think like a meta shift would be something that does something complete. To me, a meta shift would be doing something that completely like navigates you a different way than the gens, but ultimately comes out to allowing you to still win.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I mean? And I think the
Yeah,
only way
totally.
we get that is really not through perks. The only way we get that is if behavior decides they're going to actually change the game. If they're going to be like, you know what, doing just gens, kind of 2016. Let's change the way the objectives work and what we're supposed to be doing in this game. Let's make the game more engaging. Let's make it so that the killer gets more opportunities to interact with the survivors. And let's give the survivors more ways to interact with the killer that is
Mhm.
fun for them. That's what they need to be doing. I've been saying this forever. Why have they not considered that? VHS, you can say whatever you want about it aesthetically. I think the aesthetic is kind of cool, but I do agree it's a little homogenous and
Mm.
it's not super unique. Like if you look at like IDV and DBD, the aesthetic of these games is really nice when it comes to like the killers. They really put a lot of thought into them. But I feel like where VHS is heading, and this is speculation just based on what we're seeing, what people have been talking about, VHS actually mechanically is where asymmetric horror should probably be going. It's where
In
we
what
should
way?
be. Because apparently, like, okay, so just from the things that I've noticed, the killer has the power, but the survivors have options to deal with the killer. They have
Mhm.
weapons that you have to craft and use against the killer, and it doesn't feel in a way that's bullying to the killer. Because the killer always has the power. The survivors are actually trying to survive. They're
You
actually
say
trying
that,
to.
but I mean, I'll bring up the point of practically every other asymmetrical game that's tried to be in Dead by Daylight space.
Hmm.
Friday 13th being probably the highest quality one that we've had so far, right?
Well, that was legal
Um,
issues that really
no,
killed
no,
that
no, yeah,
game.
yeah, yeah, but it was never in any way contending with DBD,
No,
and
it
I feel
wasn't.
like part of the problem there is that like you could have the same argument where from face value it looks like the killers, no, the survivors can interact, and in fact they can actually kill Jason, right?
Yeah.
But the problem being is that like ultimately. If you played as Jason like a year after release, it felt like you were being bullied.
Yeah.
It was the same as with what other games are there? Home Sweet Home,
Mhm.
exact same problem where because survivors have power, it takes it away. And I've heard people talk about DBD and the way that kind of like keep in mind that when you first start playing DBD, the game is very killer sided, right?
Mhm.
Obviously, when you get very good at it, the game is very survivor sided. But when you first start playing it, you feel that power, right? Because no one
Mhm.
can stop you.
Yeah.
Um, and that was ultimately what kind of took me away from Home Sweet Home, other than the fact the game wasn't that fun,
Mhm.
was that like it felt like the survivors had too much
Much power.
ability to
Yeah.
deal with you.
Yeah.
And again, it's the same concern is that like DBD is the only one in comparison that you can't do anything against the killer, whereas in VHS, you have the ability, from what I saw in trailers, you can like hit the killer, you can stun them, you can do various things. And I believe that there is one. I will kind of like contradict myself. There is one particular aspect that looks to be relatively interesting in that
Mhm.
way,
Mhm.
because it looks like certain objectives actually rely on you dealing with the killer, right? As
Yes.
in, like if the like DVD, if the killer just goes AFK, the survivors will do the same thing and do the same 5 gens and escape, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Whereas with this one, you actually have to. I don't know in
You
what
have to
way. I
be
just saw from the
interactive.
trailers you got to interact. You got to do something. You got to beat up the killer or
And
like
that's what I'm talking
I
about
have
in
no idea.
general. I'm not talking about like it like I said, it's speculation as to whether VHS is going to be successful or not. But I think VHS has a lot of potential to actually be good based on the way that the mechanics as I've heard and as have been described in the videos that I've seen so far seem like. And now, like I said, obviously we got to wait for more people to play it. We got to get involved when it comes out.
Yeah,
But it seems like it's giving survivors a way to interact with the killer that makes it for the killer more interactive for them as well. And I feel
yeah.
like
In
that's
theory,
what
yeah.
behavior, and I'm not saying behavior has to do the exact same thing these games are doing. I'm not saying that. I'm saying you need to give us something more engaging and interactive. Gens, like I said, we're what? We still in 2016? We're still doing
Yeah.
gens? Like you really want to shake up the meta? The perks aren't where you need to go. The base mechanics of the game are where you need to go. The
Hmm.
maps, the tiles, the objectives that are available in the game. These are the things that need to change. Like scourge hooks are like a nice introduction. Boon totems are like a nice little thing, I guess. But that's giving the killer more things to do, though. That's not giving the
Mhm.
survivors more things to do and engage with. Now I've got another thing as killer to worry about. Whereas the killer has already 8 different objectives he's got to
This,
be focused
yeah,
on. The
this
survivor
was yeah.
have one. They have one. One and only one.
This is kind of like what I was thinking was the issue, and it's what I've been talking about on stream as to what I think could potentially be the difficulty with introducing boon totems, right? Because on face value, it's cool. There's something completely different. Survivors have totems now. Apparently, they're affected by the thrill of the hunt, stuff like that. It's cool,
Mm.
but like ultimately, if you kind of like strip everything down, survivors still only have that one same objective.
Gens.
And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It works, right? It's a little bit mundane at this point, but it's an objective that hasn't changed.
Mm.
But that is the one. As long as they stick gens and evade the kill, I guess you could say it's like a partial objective because only 1/4 of the team actually has to do that in
Yeah.
theory.
Yeah.
Then everyone escapes. Whereas the killer has always had way more objectives to deal with, right? They've got to deal
Mm.
with gen regression. They've got to deal with chase time. There's a lot of like macro
Breaking
thinking
pallets,
that
doing
goes breaking pallets.
loops.
Do I break the pallet? Do I not? Do I have to return to this area? Is this area a dead zone? Am I trying to create like a 3-gen situation? There's a
Mm.
lot to worry about. And I think adding something on top of that, again for killer, that survivors don't have to worry about is different. I think like okay, actually, a good example
I
of
feel
something that
like
I
if
think
they want to introduce
survivors
boon totems, they don't automatically start. I think a survivor should have to set up the boon totem.
I agree to an extent. I think a good example of how the meta, or no, sorry, how the gameplay has actually been affected. I think probably other than Noed, which again I don't really think is too important because a lot of people just do bones.
Mm.
I think Devour Hope is the only thing in the game that actually changes up objectives, right?
Yes. Yes.
Because it gives you this urgency. As soon as you have that 3 stack and you hear that sound effect, because someone's been insta downed with three
Mm.
stack Devour Hope,
The
you
game
now cannot
changes.
continue. You can't do gens anymore because you will die. You have 2 more hook states remaining until
Mm.
one of you gets moried out of the game that
Mm.
hasn't even been hooked yet, potentially,
Yes.
right? So like to me, that's why I love Devour Hope so
That
much because it
yeah.
actually like even from Survivor side, it changes up the gameplay. You're like, shit, I've got to go and do something now, right? And there's nothing else in the game that does that. Even Noed, it's just a case of either hiding or escaping through the X gates or just doing bones, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not something that you kind of like prematurely what's the best way to describe it? I think Devour Hope just happens, right? Unless you cleanse it really early on. As
Yeah.
soon as Devour Hope procs, you're in a situation where now you cannot do that one main objective that you've been doing this whole time. You got to go run around and try and find it before it's too late. I
Yeah.
think that sense of urgency is incredible. Even from Survivor side, I think the balance of that perk, despite the fact it's extremely fucking strong, like
Yeah.
wiping
Yeah.
someone out that's never been in a chase, but it's the urgency, and I actually think it's a really fun perk because of that, right?
Exactly. Yeah. No, I 100% agree because as soon as that totem gets lit up and every survivor knows it, they're like, "Oh fuck. We have to do something about this." It's literally changes the entire game mid-game.
Right,
Mid-game, the entire
exactly,
game changes.
exactly.
The feel of the game changes. The like you can
Yeah, because there's
feel the
now this pressure,
survivors
like
like
actual
pressure.
pressure.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Because like as soon as that 3 stack hits and you get that first instant out, and honestly, I've had the most ridiculous luck with Devour. Other than the fact that like I'm very rarely getting a stack.
Yeah.
When I do get a stack now, it's like mid swing. It's awesome. But like it's the only thing in the game that actually gets the survivors into this mentality where they're like, shit, we can actually lose the game if we keep doing what we're doing right
Mhm.
now. Like 2 more hook states, and someone's probably on the hook right now. So it's probably 1 more hook state before someone gets moried, right?
Yeah.
And I think
Hexblade thing is
just
also
to
pretty nice. I'll say
I, I,
Hexblade thing is
I
also
was just going to
nice.
address KCG in chat. Hey, by the way, buddy. I think plaything's a nice idea, but the problem is I don't think the urgency is the
Yeah, there's
same.
not
The
as
amount of
much
times that
urgency.
I play with plaything, funnily enough, and I go through the whole game and no one cleanses it because they just don't care. Like it does depend on killer as well. If it's a killer like Blight or Nurse or Spirit, again the strongest, you kind of have to because they're so quick in chase that you're not going to be given enough time when you're oblivious, right?
Yeah. But if it's any
Um,
other killer, it doesn't really
if
matter.
it's like Legion or Trapper, it's like I'll take a hit and I'll just like go and pre-throw a few pallets. It's fine. Whereas
Whereas
you,
if you're
you can't
playing
do that with
Devour
Devour.
Hope
No,
with
you're dead.
yeah, if you're playing Devour
You're
Hope
gone.
and I'm playing Ghostface, you're in trouble.
Right. Yeah, exactly. You are dead. So you have to stop what you're doing, which I have always felt like that is one of the most, despite the fact it's extremely powerful,
Mm.
extremely. I feel like it's one of the most balanced perks in the game, or one of the most fun at least, because
Yes.
it actually it changes up meta,
And it's
right?
earned. It's not, it doesn't just
Exactly. Yeah.
happen. You have to
Exactly.
earn
You've got to be a
it.
certain amount away, and it's actually on top of that, kind of like as an extension as to how good how well that perk is designed. And it's actually an anti-camping perk, right?
Yeah, it
If you
is.
actively camp with Devour, you will get
You
no
will not get
stacks.
no benefit out of it.
So not only is it promoting you from not playing like a dick, but it actually promotes good play and being away and trying to pressure other people.
And then you get
It,
rewarded for that good play.
exactly. Why are there not more perks like Devour? Is what I'm saying.
I know. It's like they unintentionally made this really well thought out balanced perk and then they've just never been able to repeat it. they've
Right.
they've never been able to do anything. I
Yeah.
honestly,
Exactly.
if you were to give me, if somebody were to tell me what is your favorite perk in DBD of all time, Devour Hope is my, I don't use it very often, but Devour
I
Hope
love
is
Devour
my
Hope.
favorite perk of all time.
I've got an entire 2 sets of emotes based on it. It's incredible.
Because of how
Um,
fun it is and how rewarding and well balanced it is. It is
exactly.
great.
When you get that 5 stack, and not only that, but like you've got to do it quickly as well, because the slower you do it, the more time you give survivors to find those totems. Um, there is this urgency as the killer to want to get them done as quickly as possible, and you're almost kind of like meta thinking as well, right? You're like, okay, the next hit that I do, because whether it's a like an insta down or like a special attack as Blight or Huntress,
Mm.
they're going to be notified about it. When do I notify them, and how certain
How
am I that
certain
I
am
can
I
get
going to
those
get this?
extra?
Yes.
Right, exactly. So you're kind of sat there. It's like, oh, I don't know if I want to go for this one yet. I don't want to attack because I don't want to reveal it.
Yeah.
And again, it kind of makes you play differently, which I think is beyond genius.
And if you're playing a killer that can mask it with their, which I don't know if the bugs still exist. There's some like I think there was a bug with certain killers where if you use the M2, it still revealed it. Um,
Plague is the only killer in the game that can still mask it.
Okay, so they removed like if they made it so that way you could mask it with like an M2, like you're like, I don't want to reveal it just yet. I kind of want to get this survivor down, and then if I get them down, I can do this, this, and this if I reveal it on the next one. Like that's like a cool way to do it, but you can't do that anymore, unfortunately, which is a little sad to me.
Yeah, for sure.
But overall, I think there's a lot of mind games in play and like metagaming with Devour Hope that I think is
For
great.
sure, there is a lot, and then it kind of ends the game with a cinematic Mori, right? Or as a survivor, if you know the killer's on 5 stacks, again, it's this kind of like this cool situation where you see the killer coming towards you, you're halfway through cleansing it, but you gotta commit.
Yeah,
'Cause
you
if you
gotta
don't
commit.
finish that one,
You're
you are
gonna die.
fucked, right? You like the other thing as well is that like it makes every killer seem like a tier 3 Myers, right?
Yeah.
Because like he's walking towards you. It doesn't matter if it's clown or a legion or something. You know that if that guy's got 5 stacks, you are absolutely screwed.
Mm.
But then to kind of address Casey in chat again, I think the problem with that, as to why they tolerate it and why it's so kind of rarely seen, is because sadly it is a very difficult perk to actually get to work,
Yeah,
right?
because they're gonna
Like
be cleansed immediately
yeah, this is the problem, and
before
like
you get to use
even
it.
yeah, like most of the time, I run the Devour Dope build, right? And the idea with that one is Retribution, Undying, Devour. Even with that and aura tracking when they cleanse anything with Undying to defend as well, I very rarely get past 2 stacks at a push.
You know what'd
Like
be
very
really
high morale.
good, I think, with Hex Devour is if it didn't light up. It only lit up after your first two tokens.
I agree, yeah, because it's not actually giving you, other than the speed benefit, which is very negligible.
Yeah, it's very negligible. It's not
I
very
feel
useful.
like I agree. I think that like any hex perk that doesn't I mean, for example, Noed, right? Noed doesn't light up until the end
Yeah,
of the
no, it
game.
doesn't light up till the end of the game.
So I feel like Devour should proc and instantly light up as soon as that 3 stack that insta down is achieved, right?
Yeah,
Once survivors get notified, then it lights.
yeah.
I think
I
the
think giving it.
ability to
I think giving
yeah.
it till two. I think giving it till 2 stacks because then like you're still it could spawn somewhere very beneficial where you're not the survivors aren't going to see it that often, but it still gives them an opportunity just in case. I mean, I
Yeah, potentially. I
I
mean, like, at the very least, we can agree that it shouldn't be able to get cleansed as a lit totem
immediately,
at 0
yes.
stacks, right?
Unless
Yeah.
the survivors are like, I just feel like cleansing totems just to make sure. Like if they're
If
like,
you
I'm gonna
accidentally
cleanse
cleanse
all
one,
these unlit totems, then by all means, you
oh, for
good
sure,
good
yeah.
for you.
If you're actively not doing the one objective in the game and you accidentally cleanse an unlit devour, then yeah, like all the power to you.
Yeah, exactly. Because A, they're doing another objective, and B, it's giving you more time to interact with the survivors. So I think that's a
Totally.
good idea. All right, let's move on real quick. Sorry, we keep
Hmm.
getting sidetracked
That's all.
because
Yep,
there's a
yep.
lot
It's
of
all good.
very interesting conversations to have. But I'll just keep pushing us
Hmm.
forward. And we'll talk about boon totems in a moment, since that was one of the things that we were coming up with. But any means necessary is getting another change. They reduced the
Yes.
amount of time initially and originally, but now they're adding auras so you know what pallets are dropped. Good.
Hmm.
I like that change. I don't see any problem with it.
I like it as well. Yeah.
I think that's a good change. Very much reminiscent of the Windows of Opportunity change. Removing the
Hmm.
cooldown, letting you see the auras at all times is a good change. I think that's solid. Um, any opinions on that?
Not massively, no. I mean, I honestly think that any change to any perk in the game that is not going to be game breaking, that may influence someone to want to take it when they wouldn't have done before, is
Hmm.
always going to be a good thing, right?
Yep.
I think there is anything like if there is any kind of change that you can conceivably give to a perk, also an item, also an add-on that would maybe contest changing something in your meta build.
Hmm.
Kind of sat there and you're like, do I
Yeah.
need my unbreakable
Yeah.
decisive
Do I need
strike
my
dead hard
Unbreakable or
DT?
DS?
Yeah, yeah, I might change that for this one.
Let me
That
use
is
this
always
any
going to be
means
a good thing, right?
necessary.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, which that is the dream, right?
Yeah, that is the dream. Just the other perks, man. I'm so tired of 4 people having Dead Hard all the time. It's like,
Yeah, it's. I mean, like especially with skill based matchmaking, it's kind of gotten to the point now where I'll walk as someone, I'll be like, "Yep, okay, here comes the dead hard, boom!" Right?
there it
I mean,
is.
although
But the
controversially,
thing
it
is,
is. Yeah,
it's become so used now, you just kind of expect it. So now you can play against it. That is the one
I
thing
was
I'll
gonna
say.
say,
I
yeah,
think,
it's
and that's the
yeah.
one thing that I was gonna say. Like, I honestly, as much as Dead Hard annoys me, I think Sprint Burst is worse. I think Sprint Burst is
As
the
a blight
worst one.
player, I
As a Blight player, yeah,
disagree,
as a
but
that's what I'm about to say. As a Blight
yeah.
player, it's not that big of a deal. But
Hmm.
you're one killer. We're talking about
Hmm.
one killer here,
I totally agree.
as
I totally
opposed
agree.
to the cavalcade of others. Imagine you're not Blight. Imagine you're
Yeah,
not a ranged killer. Imagine you are an M1 killer. You're a
yeah.
Myers. You're a Legion. You're a Ghostface. You're in a 3-gen
Trapper, yeah. Hmm.
situation. There are still 4 survivors alive. You're on one of the largest maps in the game. Survivor goes to a gen, you go to chase them off, sprint burst away. You go to the other gen, sprint burst away. They come back, do the same thing again, over and over again. And I've had this happen as Ghostface on maps like Ironworks and all those other things. It is one of those perks where I think it is actually more annoying and a little bit more irritating than Dead Hard. Like, Dead Hard works against Blight 100%. It's like one of those ones where you can still play around it as Blight, but it
Hmm.
works. You can still play around it as Blight. Sprint
Yeah.
Burst is very, very irritating in a lot of situations. I remember I was playing as Pyramid Head on Mother's Dwelling, and there was a lot of Sprint Burst users, and they just would constantly do that over and over again. And because they're on the biggest map, and even though I'm Pyramid Head, they would get away. You get so much value from that. You get so much value from sprint bursts. I know a lot of people. I think this might be controversial, but I think sprint burst is worse. Because you can in most cases kind of play around dead hard. There's a couple of times where it's like, oh, they're just clearly gonna dead hard to the pallet, and I can't stop them. Like, that's the annoying part of dead hard. But sprint burst is actively they get to continue on the objective because you chase them off for about 2 seconds, and then they just go back and do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, like sprint burst gives you like dead hard requires input. Dead hard requires you to know what you're doing with it. Sprint burst does not. Sprint burst is just like, oh, I'm unexhausted. I'm on a gen. He's coming at me. Let me run away. It's the
Hmm.
same thing every time. It's the
I
same thing
think
every time.
Sprint Burst has kind of like two sides to it, though. I think there's the side of people that sprint burst away and they don't know where they're going. They just sprint somewhere.
Yeah.
And in those cases, they probably don't go anywhere safe. They're just going to
No,
head
they
to like
don't.
like a dead zone or something.
Hmm.
That's fine. However, if you've ever been, and it's always been my argument, because I don't think even against M1 killers or blight or nurse, I mean, nurse to an extent,
Hmm.
um, Dead Hard isn't that great of a perk. I've really never rated it so high because if you've ever been against a survivor that really knows how to use sprint bursts, as in 1990 it at
Mm-hmm.
every possible instance,
Yep.
they are impossible
Possible to
to catch.
catch.
They are
Yes.
so hard.
They're so
You know,
hard.
you get in like an unhook like an unhook situation or something, or they go into the basement to rescue someone, and they 99 their sprint burst. So as soon as you try and catch them,
They just run right
they
past
wait until you swing,
and
and
you
then boom,
whiff. Yeah.
you've lost it. You've now got that like fatigue from the swing. Once the animation's finished, they're probably like 20 seconds away at least, plus whatever they want to move now.
And plus
I
they're at the next loop that they needed to be at, the strongest loop that they could get to because they knew exactly where they were going with it.
For sure. I think the main difference though, like really quickly between Dead Hard and Sprint Burst is that
Mm.
like I think Sprint Burst to play optimally is much harder and it takes a lot of focus because because you've got to constantly pay attention to your
Your exhaustion
exhaustion
meter.
meter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And things like that. You've got to know what's around you, where you can get to, what kind of distance you've got in general. Dead Hard is a lot easier to get
Yeah, Dead
better
Hard is a
results,
lot
right?
easier to get better results, but I feel like I feel like it's easier to play around though because sprint bursters that know how to use sprint burster, you can never touch them sometimes. I've gone up against sprint bursters
Yeah,
that just
tough,
they're
yeah.
like you just cannot touch them. They just know. They're like, "All right, I'm going to use it now and now you can't get me. I'm going to use it
hmm
now again, and now you can't get me. I'm going to use it now again and you can't get me." It's just like it's like one of those things. It just lets you freely run to an it's like they got hit for free but they didn't. It's like they got a sprint burst from getting hit that they never hit that they never got hit from. It's frustrating. I think sprint burst is more frustrating than dead hard in a lot of circumstances, especially against a sprint burster that knows what he's doing. People dead hard for distance all the time, and sometimes you can play around that. You're not going to be able to play around somebody who's sprint bursting for distance.
No, exactly. And 9 times out of 10, most dead hards kind of, they typically occur outside of a situation where they can dead hard to a pallet or something, right? If a
Hmm.
survivor, I think that is the main kind of, genius or
Smart play with a dead hard,
smart
yeah.
play. Yeah, yeah.
It's the
If you're a
most safe
situation.
and effective
Yeah,
and
very.
smartest
But
play.
it's still rare to be in a situation where you know that you can make a pallet that you A, either otherwise couldn't make, or
Mhm.
B, the killer can't get to you before you get there anyway. It's a very specific margin.
Yeah, it's a very
Um,
specific margin of error that you have to
whereas
meet.
Sprint Burst is not.
Yeah, it's not.
Sprint Burst, it's not the kind of thing as where, with Dead Hard, I was going to say 9 times out of 10, a survivor will do it to try and whiff a hit. And every killer that's ever played against any survivor is going to wait out every single injured survivor ever anyway, so it makes no difference. Whereas Sprint Burst, you can't do anything, right? You go for a hit, you try and
Mhm.
wait it out, they know exactly when you're about to be next to them, and they sprint off. And it's not like Dead Hard where they move forwards for 2 seconds with invincibility and then you catch them anyway. They are gone. They are in
Yeah.
somewhere that is incredibly safe by the time you get there. If they sprint burst from like Cowshed to like an opposing, like Longwall Jungle Gym or something,
Mhm.
good luck, Legion.
Yeah, good luck Legion, good luck Myers, good luck any M1 killer, and you're kind of in a bad situation.
Yeah,
All right, real quick, let's go on and move to No Mither though.
sounds good.
No Mither allows you to trade health states for other bonuses, but these bonuses aren't strong enough to warrant using the perk. We've increased the Grunts of Pain reduction to 25, 50, 75%. Additionally, we added 15 to 20 to 25% increased recovery speed while in the dying state. I think all they really needed to do with No Mither was make it so you had free Iron Will on No Mither
hmm
and give you extra blood points for using it. If you're like,
I totally agree. Yeah.
I
In fact,
don't get
I
this.
honestly I would have said that like what if No Mither was like a barbecue situation, right? Where it actually just doubles your blood points after the game.
Yeah,
I mean, you went through the whole thing injured. Like having the Iron Will thing would be nice. I mean, it makes sense because you are going to be bleeding the whole time.
yeah, and
Um,
you shouldn't be grunting like it's already hard enough. You're already at a huge disadvantage being in an injured
Yeah, there
state.
shouldn't be an extra one. Yeah, but I think like that would be an interesting change though, because a survivor can conceivably go through a game and get double blood points at the cost of it being twice as hard,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Or even like if they want to go crazy, go triple blood points. Go be like let's say you get like if you die with no mither, you get half as much blood points as you would have gotten, or more than half
Yeah,
the
that'd be cool,
points.
right?
So you're like, okay, I still get rewarded some blood points for at least attempting the no mither. I get like I still get a decent amount, like I get a good amount.
Yeah,
But if you successfully get out and you escape, triple the blood points. right off the
And
bat.
again, the reason why that would work so well, kind of like everything we've been talking about as far as like fun in the game
It would
goes,
shake up the
is that like
meta.
it would shake up the meta. It would shake up what you want to do. I
You
mean,
might see
to
more
be
people
fair,
running no mither.
yeah, you probably still see the same thing of No Mither and Dead Hard DSBT, but you would see more of that. And like anyone that's ever played against No Mither means as long as you're not slugging them, they're significantly easier to play around than the average survivor, right?
Yeah, yeah,
They're injured all the time.
yeah,
Other than the fact that they've got permanent resilience, Dead Hard.
yeah,
But I think if there was a some kind of incentive, I think this is the problem, kind of like as an overarching thing that we can probably talk about another time. But I think
yeah.
there's not
There's
this
not a lot of
huge
incentives.
incentive to do these risky things. Like for example, I go into games with Shadowborn and Barbecue, right?
Mhm.
That is my build. That's all I run. I don't run gen aggression. I don't kick gens. That's just what I like because I like chases. And I like things to be a challenge. There's no incentive for me to do that, right?
Yeah.
However, if people are
Outside
given
of
incentives to do
you
it,
wanting to, specifically,
right. But
personally.
then I'm assuming you've seen the achievement. I'm pretty sure that was introduced with the Twins chapter, if I'm not mistaken, where you have to escape a certain number of games with no perks on,
Yeah,
right?
I got
Like
that.
stuff like
I did
that,
it.
right? But it makes you play differently, and it kind of feels rewarding for
Yeah,
wanting to do that. What if there was something in the game that okay, theoretically, obviously this probably isn't, wouldn't work, but what if the less perks you play with, the more like blood points you were given, right? You're given like a 25%, obviously, like again, this is very extreme, but you're given a 25% bonus to things that you don't bring into the game, right? Or
hmm,
something to just make it either more challenging for yourself and more rewarding, rather than just being playing the same thing over and over again and not really having any incentive to change. I think that is the
yeah,
problem, is there's no incentive to change, especially with MMR, because you will keep escaping with that build because
yeah,
it's a very efficient
yeah.
build.
And Casey, the thing is though, even if you give somebody like that much of an incentive to run no mither, you're still only going to have like a very small percentage of the player base who's going to do it. Our overall point is you can make other perks more rewarding even if there's a big drawback to them, so they're actually worth more to attempt if you're interested in doing that. We're talking about giving people the option to do something different and incentivizing them to do it. Obviously, not everybody's going to still run no mither even if you give them triple blood points for escaping, but it might make somebody think about it, and maybe it might make them force them to try to play better. Maybe it will teach them things they didn't know before. It's kind of like a long con kind of thing. You're kind of incentivizing people to do something now, and maybe they don't get a benefit out of it immediately, but maybe they like the challenge. Maybe they're like, well, I want to see if I can get good with this now and get a ton of blood points doing it repeatedly, and maybe I can become really really good at being able to live through a game through one injured state. Then you have a survivor who becomes
Mhm.
just good off of that. They trained themselves to do that. They've trained themselves to be good. I did the no perk challenge not because of the achievement Lilith mentioned. I did it because I wanted a challenge. Because I was like, man, I used to run Dead Hard. I used to run DS. I used to run all the meta perks. It's brain dead, boring, easy. I want a challenge. I want to challenge myself. I was like, I'm gonna get, granted we weren't gonna get the reset. They didn't do this was around the time they made the reset, soft reset, instead of like the hard reset, which is dropping you up past like level 10 or rank 10. But I was like, all right, well, at least I'm going to go from rank 5 to rank 1 perkless. And I did it. Not because of the achievement. I got the achievement incidentally. I didn't even know about the achievement at the time. I just got it. But I just wanted to challenge myself. And that was just because I personally wanted to. What if behavior incentivizes people to challenge themselves to get better and also makes it so the game is more fun and fair and interactive? Like that's what we want out of this, really, is
Mhm.
when we talk about these things and incentivizing players to choose different paths other than let me run all the best meta, let me run a BNP, let me run a prove thyself, let me run an unbreakable, because right now the funny thing is there's no incentive to increase your MMR, but people are still freaking doing it for some reason. And the only reason they're doing that really is just because it's been talked about so much. We need that kind of idea and notoriety. What if you give people actual incentive? Then you're seeing people do this just because SBMM was introduced and announced. What if you gave people actually incentive to do other things that are different? Then you'd probably see a shift or a change in the way things work with the game and the meta. But that's just kind of what we're trying to get at. I get that you don't want somebody coming in with no mither who has no brain and ruins the game for everybody. Nobody wants that, but we just want there to be options, essentially. Something that makes the perk better and worthwhile going for. Even if it's a hard mode perk. You know what I mean? Um, all right, so let's move on to Mindbreaker, Fearmongerer. We're still gonna all call it Mindbreaker because who gives a shit about what behavior does with the perks with demo. But survivors who are working on a generator will now suffer from blindness in addition to exhaustion. So how do you feel about that one, Lilith?
I mean, it's going to be interesting. I don't think it's going to be massively different,
Mm-hmm.
and we're still not going to still, we're not going to see people bringing Mindbreaker, but
Yeah. I think it's actually going to be useful in tandem with other perks, like maybe like Plaything or any sort of perk that causes obliviousness too. It might actually
yeah,
affect
possibly.
sprint bursters depending on the gen and its location. I think it's got some applications, but overall, yeah, I agree. It's not going to be like a game changer.
Hmm.
All right, let's move on to. We're almost done. Sorry, guys. We kind of like took some tangents and some paths. We're almost done, so don't worry. Hatch and keys. All right, so I think most everybody knows what is going on with Hatch now. But we'll just read it real quick. First Hatch is no longer going to spawn if there's more than one survivor available in the trial. So doesn't matter if you have not done all the gens, if you haven't touched any of the gens, then you are not going to see it unless everybody is dead. I think that's a great change. I think that's going to
Hmm.
help a lot. And then the additional change is the hatch will now take a few seconds to open with the key once it is closed. So the key actually is going to have to take time and it's not going to suffer from regression. They can basically 99 it if they want. Um,
Hmm.
so those are the changes to hatch. I say finally, thank goodness we've been needing these changes. Now the hatch is, and I kind of said this in the DBD discussion. I think I said it in the DBD discussion, but I said it's like it's a GTFO mechanic. It's a get the fuck out while you can mechanic instead of a well I guess we can leave whenever we feel like it. I don't know mechanic,
Hmm.
which is good. I think that's great. Hallelujah. Thank goodness. It took them long enough to do this, and it basically just ended up doing what everybody told them to do anyway. But what do you
See,
think,
okay,
Lilith?
controversially, I'm not sure about the update. And it's not because I love keys. I think keys are the most fucking abysmal thing in the game. They're terrible.
Yes.
Um, but I think it's from a fun perspective though, right? I've always liked the idea of there being an alternative way of escaping the trial, right?
Mm-hmm.
As long as it feels earned, right? It's the same
Yes.
thing as like Friday 13th, right? Yeah, you can just repair the car and leave. You can call for the cops and they'll come and pick you up, right? But
You
you
can
can
also
also
take the
kill
boat or
Jason.
kill Jason,
Right, you can take the boat, right? If you kill Jason, though, it's a tough one. It's an
but
alternative
it's
choice,
rewarding.
but it feels rewarding, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
feel like the hatch should have always been that. And so my theory for the hatch, which I've always said, which we were talking about recently in stream, actually, I want to say last week, was that I think I love the idea of. I mean, I was going to say I love the idea of it taking time. I mean, it should have always
It
taken
should
time.
always
You
take
know,
a
if
time.
if,
Yeah.
if you want to open an exit gate or do a gen or open a chest, they'll take time. Why can you open a hatch with a click? It does. At the very least, you've got to bend down and put the key in, right?
Yeah.
In a stressful situation, being chased by a 9 foot tall, bloodthirsty murderer, you can just press a button, and in a single frame, you go from holding a key in your hand to putting it in the lock, unlocking, and jumping in. Right? It's not
Yes.
viable. Um, the thing that I'm contentious about is that I don't know whether I like the concept of only ever having one person go through it. I think that what would have been if like theoretically, I don't think it's a bad change, but I think theoretically what could have been better is if there was always the potential because it puts fear on the killers, a potential of 4 survivors still escaping through it.
Well,
But
keep
it
in
should have
mind,
been
four
difficult.
survivors can still escape. It's only one if there was only one gen left. If all the gens are done, all four of them can escape through the hatch still.
Are you sure?
The
Is
way
that the way it
that's
was worded?
the way that it's worded here, at least from what I'm seeing. Hold on, I'll reread it just to make sure.
Yeah.
From what it says, first, the hatch will longer respawn if there's more than one survivor in the trial. Well, this means that you'll never have to worry about the last three survivors vanishing when there's still one generator left. So I
Right,
think
but by
it's a little vague.
extension,
It's a little vague, but I
I
still
I
think that means
I
you can
I
get four
think
people out.
I don't think it does, because if you then go to read the comment on the achievement, they
Hmm.
say that it's physically impossible to have four survivors
They
escape
did.
in the hatch to get it done.
Okay.
Which means that even after the gens are done, it is physically impossible to have four people escape. Right?
Hmm.
That means the hatch will never spawn. Like going by this, it means the hatch will never spawn if there's more than one survivor. Right? Even if the
Hmm.
gens are done. And I don't know if I like that, because I like the idea of urgency. So my theory was that I think the hatch should take time to open, obviously.
Hmm.
I would have put it much longer in my
Hmm.
theory, probably closer to 10, 15 seconds. And also, you only get one chance per key, right?
Yeah.
So if you have an iridescent or a purple key, like as soon as you start the animation, you start the process of opening the hatch. If you stop at any point, it breaks the key.
Hmm.
That's how broken keys will be collected, right?
Oh, okay.
Um, so that was my theory, and so it means the survivors have to be 100% sure that they will they can get out, right? If it's one person, if it's four people, they have to know that 10 to 15 seconds is viable wherever they are, because if the killer's within 15 seconds
Mm.
and they stop, the key is gone. So at that point, I kind of feel like from the killer side, if the survivor uses it to get out and it took them 10 15 seconds, and on top of that, I kind of feel like another thing that I was kind of theorizing was, what if the killer was given a notification, like an aura, of a
Hmm.
survivor opening the hatch, right? It's the last opportunity to
Kind of like
try
No
and
Way
stop
Out,
them.
where it, like if they
Yeah, yeah,
touch
yes,
it,
yeah,
it
yeah.
makes a
Very similar.
noise. Yeah.
Very similar. So it's their last opportunity to try and stop them before they inevitably end the game, right?
Mm.
At that point, it would kind of feel not rewarding, but you at least had a chance to stop them. You knew that
Mm.
they had to commit to the animation. That was their only chance of it.
Mm.
At that point, if four survivors escape with the key, I wouldn't really feel like it was necessarily like that. It wasn't
It
like,
wasn't
oh, the
that
game's
bad.
over,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. It's not
Yeah,
like the game's over.
right.
It's like I had my chance, but they still got out. Yeah.
Exactly, right.
And if there
Which
is like a little notification, like a sound notification, let's say the survivors are clever, and they're like, okay, you start working on this hatch. The moment you touch it, let me know. I'm gonna vault through this window. Two notifications go off. Which one do you go
Right.
for?
That, or the other survivor starts working on the exit gate with no way out or something, right?
Yeah.
Or they just start like actually opening it, or the door's 99 or something. Again, it's a situation where the killer now has to choose. That survivor I know has started working on that hatch, right?
Mm.
I have 10 seconds to go and get to them before they have escaped. That is it, right?
Mm.
However, I see that survivor over there working on the door. And again, it will kind of create a situation with the survivors where they're talking to each other, and good communications will be rewarded, even if it's not through game notifications. No, sorry. Even if it's not through like communications in Discord, or like outside of the game. What if survivors were also shown that aura of a survivor opening the hatch?
Exactly.
It
Yeah.
would kind of take away the ambiguity of a survivor trying to ditch you, but it would give you time to realize, okay, that survivor is committing to that. They have to do it now. So
Yeah.
I am going to go open the door. I'm going to try and do something else. I want to try and get the killer's attention.
Hmm.
Um, and it would deviate as well, because now the person opening the door might not be the biggest threat, because now the killer knows there's someone opening the hatch, and maybe they have an idea that there's now two more survivors over there.
Yeah.
Do they go
Exactly.
and push the door to try and stop that one person, escaping, or risk going to the other one to stop potentially three, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you can also make it so hatch only spawns in like it's so random, but it still only spawns in specific areas away from doors. So now you like not only do you have to choose, but now the survivor has to choose. Do we stay at the hatch and the killer potentially comes over here and pressures three of us and there's like one other at the door? Can we make it to the door in time? Is the killer going to be able to
Exactly.
get a
Yeah.
chase in or something like that? So I think that's a good idea. I think that's a very good idea. I think the idea that they're currently running with is only good in the fact that it removes a lot of the BS with the way that the keys and the
Yeah,
hatch
it
works, and
totally does. It's
they can
yeah.
change it later. It's not like
Yeah,
this
I
is
mean,
not like any
for
of these
now,
changes are set in stone. They always
yeah.
change.
Yeah, like for now, I think this change is good. I think it could be modified to be more
Better.
fun for both sides. Yeah, a little bit more engaging. Again, like the
Hmm.
main focus that I always have, and I know the same with you, is engagement and interaction between both sides. Right?
Yeah.
It's why I love playing this game from both sides. I don't want to sit there on survivor side and just do gens. I want to interact with the killer and the survivors.
Yeah.
So I think
Exactly.
using the key as another form of interaction is a good way of dealing with it, I think. I think for now though, I agree. It's a good patch to try and, gloss over it and stop it being the problem that it is currently, because currently, I mean, I
It's
don't
just
really have to say
it's
anything about
miserable.
it.
It's
It
miserable.
is miserable. There's nothing worse than knowing that the survivor you're chasing, that they have a key and you're looping around Shack and you know where the hatch is, right? There's nothing you can do. You are powerless in that situation. You
Oh
hit them
yeah,
once, they get a speed boost and
and
they
then
go
they're
to the
gone.
hatch. The press, yeah, gone, right?
And it's the same
Um,
thing if there's like multiple survivors. You're chasing one and you're just like, man, I've been struggling all game. I've got most of them on death hook. Like I just if I can get like one good chase or one good pressuring moment on them, and then the last gen pops, and then they all run to the hatch, and maybe you get one, and you're just like, great.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
Or
So
even but that's more that's a little bit more earned. But let's say it's even worse. You kill one of them and you're like kicking ass, and then all of a sudden three of them just disappear, and you're like, whoa, where did they all go?
this is the other thing as well. Yeah, and it doesn't, as someone that escaped through a hatch as survivor before because other survivors opened it, and I'm like, well, fuck it, I'm gonna die if I don't jump in. It doesn't feel rewarding to jump through it. It doesn't feel
No,
like I
you
earned that
didn't
escape
earn it.
or no. And it's like any good exit gate play always feels like you earned it, right? You
Yeah,
had to run to the exit gate. The killer knows where the exit gates are. You still stuck it through, and then you got out of the exit gate and you survived, right?
yeah,
Feels like you got it. You had
yeah.
to power them as well.
Hmm.
Key, you don't even have to do that, right?
No,
And it's always the biggest problem. I mean, everyone's seen those teams of Swifts that for some, I've never understood the mentality of DCing for hatch escape, right? Because that survivor's going to get no blood points
no,
and
they're
is
not
now
gonna get anything
banned
out of
for
it.
5 minutes. Like, fair play. But like everyone's been in that situation where there's like one gen remaining until they can jump through it,
Yep.
and then one of them DCs and two of them escape immediately, right?
Mm.
It's like awesome. The
Yeah,
game's over. There's that like fair play, GG in the post game and move on.
yeah,
Like there was no there was nothing exciting about a key, and I feel like that's the thing that I'd love to see is some kind of exciting play. Like as far as it's being changed to now, and
mm.
again it's PTB, it could modify and it could be changed in the future.
Yeah.
Um, I think this is good enough.
It's good
They've
enough.
taken
Yeah, it's
away,
kind of like a band-aid, if we're being
yeah,
honest.
they're taking away the ability to just jump through the hatch and like mid chase and have no
Yeah,
repercussion.
and how many times have
Uh,
you seen key users who are not interactive with their teammates? They wait till a couple of them die and then they just leave.
oh, right, okay. So I had this game the other day, and I've never seen chat be more disappointed in a survivor in my life. There was like 200 people that were like, "That is the most dick move I've ever seen in my life." It was this one Adam, and it was on Yamaoka Estate, right? And I, like being the fact that it's very high, MMR, and I need to play very efficiently. I basically go in with the intention of tunneling this guy out the game, right? He has a key.
Mm.
Um, because there's nothing worse than getting to the end of the game. That guy's still alive, and and like even worse than that is being in the situation where someone has a key, but then you kill someone else, and now because you killed that person, now they have
They can
enough
just
gens to
leave.
escape, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that person has to die anyway. So I find him very very quickly. In fact, I had a it was green speed and the insta down, right?
Mm.
So I use lethal pursuer. He's downed for the first time within like 8 seconds, right? Easy.
After that, he
I
just
then
hid.
find him. No, so I then found him again and downed him again. Perfect. And then after that, I could not see him the rest of the game, like ever.
Yeah.
I looked everywhere. I was trying to find him. I was chasing the other survivors, but to be honest, I didn't really care about the other survivors. I'd be fine if they escaped if this guy didn't, right? Bringing the
Mm.
key. And turns out that right at the end of the game, he was hiding in lockers the entire game.
Yeah.
The reason the gens were slow and the reason why the rest of his team died is because he was so committed to that hatch escape that the rest of the team had to do the remaining like what 4 gens,
By
um,
themselves.
and then die just enough so he could then have the hatch spawn, which he then brought a spawn offering for Shaq anyway, so we knew what it was, and then just leaves. And I was just kind of stood there looking at this poor Nancy that had tried her best. She'd done like 3 gens on her own. She'd be looping me for a bit. As soon as I see that escape notification come up, I just kind of looked at her and I was like, I can't kill you, right? I would be a dick to want to kill you right now.
Mm. Yeah, that's the thing that I run into often with like key players. They're very selfish. They're very most of the time they're very very selfish. They don't like try to get their friends out, especially now. I mean, before SBMM, sometimes there'd be a key user who's like, I'm gonna try and get my friends out if I can. if I can get them over to the hatch. If I can't, then I'll just leave, but they'll try at least. Now,
Yeah.
especially, it's I'm seeing it way more. I'm seeing key users like they just don't give a fuck unless they're in a comms with their friends on like in a Swift. If they're solo, they don't care. They just
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
give a crap. They will leave the other survivors as soon as they get the opportunity. They will not do anything. They get a free escape for doing nothing. Their team suffers the
Yeah.
entire time, but they play like such selfish dickbags. They ruin the experience for three other people. And everybody knows that three survivors against one killer, the killer actually has power in that scenario more often than not.
Well,
Unless
do you know
these
what the
unless
worst
these
part is
three
though?
survivors are cracked as fuck.
Yeah, but do you know what the worst part is though?
Mm.
Is out of those 4 survivors, who is increasing their MMR score?
The fucking key user.
The guy with the hatch,
Yeah,
right? The guy that did nothing the
the
entire
guy who did
game, the
nothing.
hidden lockers, right? But he escaped,
But he
right?
escaped,
And
so
so
it counts.
that's all that matters.
Yeah.
It's mind blowing.
It's so annoying. It's so annoying. But yeah, keys and hatch have been a bane in this game for so long. So I'm really hoping that this does something. My worry is there might be some unintended consequence of the way that it operates now that might increase the level of selfishness, but we'll have to wait and see. Um,
Yeah, it's true.
Anyway, boon totems. So let's go ahead and move on to this real quick.
Mhm.
Survivors will be able to bless a totem to change it into a boon totem, and these blessings are designed to offer comfort to a survivor team, a small safe haven. However, unlike a hex totem, the killer can also quickly interact with the created boon totem to completely remove the associated blessing, once again turning it into a dull totem. This will also be able to hear the boon totem when it's in range. Survivors can only have one boon totem active at a time. The boon totem will combine the effects of all equipped boon perks. This will add some strategic decisions for survivors to make it when it comes to interactions with totems. Also, will create interactions for killers. That is unnecessary, but okay. What do you think? And go ahead and go off, Lilith, and let me know.
So boon totems. I mean, it's like honestly, it's something that I don't know how to quote on until I've seen exactly what they are and how they. Yeah, it's really tough to say because I could say right now that I mean to be fair, the PTBs tomorrow. I could say right now that like yeah they're going to be great for the game, and then I play it tomorrow and they're garbage, right? Or the split where I think they're terrible and then they actually turn out to be okay. I think it depends on
The
the
effects.
level. Yeah, the kind of the pure level of effect that they have on the game, right? If they're kind of minimal to an extent, they give survivors maybe like a little bit like quicker exhaustion recovery, right? Stuff like that.
Or
That can
like,
actually have a pretty big effect on the game if they got
yeah,
sprint burst with dead hard, things like that.
yeah.
But it's not game ending. You can play around it, right? Whereas what if it gives survivors per boon totem 5% gen increase,
Yeah,
right?
that's gonna
That
be.
is fucking concerning. Like,
Yeah, yeah. Give me
I
just 1 second. You can keep talking.
yeah,
I'll be right back.
that's all good, man.
Yeah, you can just share your opinion on the matter. Go for it.
On the you know what? I'll talk to KC in chat. What's going on, buddy? It's great to have you. Promotes no interaction with the killer. Key uses. Wait, hold on. We're talking about boon effects, right? So I'm honestly I'm not exactly sure how to feel about them. And again, kind of like I was saying, it's going to be a case where like I don't know. It all kind of depends on how much of an effect they put on the game, right? If they end up being like relatively kind of feasible and they're not like massively game breaking, then I'm all for them. I think anything that kind of adds more objective into the game is cool. As long as it actually adds some kind of urgency or different playstyle for survivors as well. I think only giving it to one side, whether it's killer or survivor side, is a bad move, right? Because they already have their kind of like preconceived ideas and objectives that they're already used to working on, right? I think especially like we were talking about earlier with killer side, it's a case of like the killer already has a lot to worry about, and if there's this now game breakingly strong thing that they have to worry about over chasing survivors, like what if you're in a situation where the boon totem is really really oppressive, right? I think about messing with the survivors in 3PTB by doing an all totem build as killer and all totems by myself. I mean, that was actually a question I was thinking myself as well. I was kind of sat there and I was like, what if I bring 5 totems as killer, right? What if I have Undying, Haunted Ground, Retribution, Devour, right? Are there any totems left for them to use? Do they spawn more for survivors? Like, what if 4 survivors use 4 boon totems and I use my 5 totem build? Are there 9 on the map? or are they kind of mitigated? I have no idea. Honestly, I genuinely don't know. I'm, again, it's something I'm kind of curious to test out in the PTB tomorrow. Um, but yeah, the biggest issue I have is I'm hoping that they're not so much of a concern that you're sat there and you're like, well, firstly, it's the beginning of the game was the really important, kind of time, and I'm like, well, I could be pressuring gens, I could be trying to find a survivor to chase him down, but instead there's this really oppressive thing that I've got to deal with like right now. They just don't get to use their perks, really.
Yeah, I'm back, by the way.
Welcome back.
Sorry about that. Animals are destroying everything, including my life. But yeah, so yeah, boon totems. It is definitely going to be a wait and see situation. I think it's going to be one of those things where we won't know exactly what's happening until it happens. Okay, so I like boon totems. I think we are kind of like in the place where we're kind of we're it's tentative. It's tentative, to
Mhm.
say the least. There are
Yeah,
a
I can't
couple
really
of
quote on it.
other changes that are happening, especially when it comes to behavior and their add-ons. Um, I mean, obviously, we have a couple of changes. There's two ones I really want to talk about real quick, and then I think that will be probably it for the rest of the our conversation. I want to say thank you for being here as long as you have been.
It's been a great time,
I'm sorry
honestly.
it's gone on for so long.
It's all good. I mean,
Um,
I could talk about this stuff for
for
hours.
hours, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm the same exact way. I love talking about this kind of stuff. It's kind of like the thing that I enjoy the most. I've also been trying dabbling in a little bit of a commentary. I just released a commentary video on YouTube of a unintentional comp game that occurred between a comp killer and comp survivors in pubs that a friend got into. He sent it to me, and I put commentary over it and recorded it, and it's on my YouTube channel right now. Exclamation mark YT. Thank you so much, Justini, for putting it in there. But yeah,
And
exclamation mark
subscribe
YT.
to Fulmey on
Yep,
YouTube.
yep. Subscribe to me on YouTube. And oh, is it not working? Well, Justine, you have access to Nightbot. You can fix it and change it if you want. I think that's the original video. I haven't changed the link yet, but that's the first video I put out, which is the Adept Pinhead. Oh, you updated it, Justine? You are a lifesaver. I love the hell out of you. Holy shit, are great. You're amazing. I love you. Anyway, um, real quick, there are two things I want to talk about because they're major to me. They are major changes in iridescent add-ons. First off, let's talk about Pig's iridescent add-on. Let me go ahead and get to that real quick. Videotape. Survivors begin the trial with reverse bear traps already installed. That is a big deal.
I'm looking forward to that one.
That is a
That sounds
and
awesome.
the way it's described, I think you still get to keep your traps on you that you already get.
As far as I'm aware, yeah, because if you look at the other iridescent, the Amanda's letter, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
it specifies that you lose them, whereas this one doesn't.
Yes. So I had somebody legitimately argue with me. I won't name names, but I had somebody legitimately argue with me that this was a shit add-on. And I was like, in what sense? Imagine the amount of perks and other add-ons you can attach with this if it doesn't specify you can't use it with this add-on that are going to make this insane. That's 4 different survivors. Let's say the survivors all need to go to a box to get this off their head, and they all go to a different box at the same time. You 100% think that all of them are going to get the trap off at the same time? Or they're going to be fighting over boxes in the beginning, giving you plenty of time to keep up on survivors and pressure them. The early game pressure is immense with this add-on. This is worth an Eerie. It is almost maybe too powerful, if I'm being honest.
It depends on. I think kind of going back to the original conversation like hours ago. It does partially depend on maps as to how viable it's going to be.
True.
And it also does depend on what you're equipping with it. You're going with like a tampered timer base kit, like that'd be kind of crazy.
Or imagine
Um,
you're doing this and you're running extra traps as an add-on.
right, but what if you did the opposite? What if you ran that, but then you run Amanda's Lesser on top of it, right? So you spawn with like no traps, but you've got the benefit of that one, which shouldn't have traps, whilst already having a trap on everybody, right?
And
Then put
they
like
don't,
corrupt
yeah,
intervention.
because they
Yeah,
don't see the boxes. I literally talked about this with them. I was like, imagine you're running those two add-ons together and they can't see boxes in the beginning. What are they going to do? They're going to search forever for boxes, or are they going to start working on gens? They have to make a choice.
Yeah.
It is insanely good. I think this add-on is, like I said, it's crazy. It's almost too good. It's almost this is a meta shakeup. Now, granted, I think the problem with Pig was never really her traps, it's her actual ambush. I wish they'd do something about that. I think if they made traps less effective and they increased her actual M2 ability, she
Hmm.
I think that would be better. But this is
Yeah.
insane how good this is going to be.
Oh, it's awesome. I think this is great.
Like, if Pig, like, imagine this kind of perk, not on Pig, but on Blight. That would be
Oh, yeah. Okay. That would be, yeah,
game
incredible.
changing. That would be
Hmm.
like broken.
Hmm.
So the fact that Pig's using it makes it so it's not too crazy, but it's still really good even on Pig. It's almost I think they might have to nerf this. Like, I mean, it does depend. I think it's going to depend on map, definitely, but I think it's still, even depending on map, if you use it in conjunction with some add-ons or some perks, this is going to be really strong. I don't know if they should have done this, to be quite honest. I'm very hesitant about this perk or this add-on. Like, what are you thinking? Like, imagine like Corrupt with this. Imagine like Ruin with this, Tinker with this. Like this, and those are just like the meta perks. Like,
Yeah.
we're
I
not even
feel like,
getting into the other perks that you could use with this, like Plaything, or any perk that makes you blinded, or like, or add-ons that make you
mhm.
blinded or oblivious for perks.
I think that, like, to be honest, I'm kind of happy that they're taking risks with stuff like this to an extent.
Yeah.
Is that like what is there, there's nothing more boring. It's why to an like to a degree I really like that Pinhead Eerie add-on, right? It's crazy OP. It is fucking atrocious, right?
Mm,
Um but I like the idea of them taking risks with potentially powerful things
mm.
rather than just playing
Just
things
playing it
safe every
safe.
single
Yes,
time, right?
exactly. Because you
Like
can always
there is nothing
nerf.
more. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like you can always nerf, but like buffing everything is not a not viable.
Yeah, buffing
So it's
everything is
better to,
hard because
yeah,
you don't know the unintended consequences of it, or you do know and you're like, uh, it's gonna be hard and it's gonna cause other problems in this scenario and that scenario and blah 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 blah. But
yeah,
just throwing
exactly.
something into the wild with abandoned because you don't know what it's gonna do is completely different, because then you know what the effect will be after the fact, and you know what you need to do to make it still effective, but not so much that it's overpowering in the game.
Exactly, exactly. And the worst case situation is that eventually it becomes null and void, right? Like some things have done where they came out super strong, Undying, right? Undying was
Mm.
like the most powerful thing in the game, and then it kind of became like just like a
It
like a
became like a
backup
ruin
totem, right?
protector. Yeah, it just
Right,
became a ruin
it's basically
protector.
there to protect ruin or devour.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I totally agree. I think that like it's really cool that they're trying things. I mean, it's the same as like the Nurse theory, right? I'm assuming that we were
Yeah,
going to get
that
to that
was going to
next
be the
anyway.
next
But
thing I
like,
wanted to talk about.
yeah, is that like giving her like a third blink? I'm feeling very 2016 about this one for sure.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, it might be at like half the distance, but that isn't the point. A
Yeah.
good nurse is not going to use that for distance. That is for
No.
baiting a dead hard and hitting through it, right?
It's not even
That is
distance. It's
exactly.
not distance though. Here's
No,
what it
no.
is. It's increased blink recharge time by 50%. You don't think that nurses are going to run this with the decreased recharge add-on?
Oh, of course they are.
There,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
as soon
totally,
as I
totally.
saw this, I was like, "What? We're going back to 2016 now?"
Hmm.
Granted, this is super strong. This is no doubt super strong. Is this as strong as 2016 Nurse when it was Omega Blink and you could act, or even 6 Blink Nurse? No, but this is still, I think, this one, like, where I'm more hesitant, like where I'm hesitant, but I'm like, let's try it out and see. This one, I'm like, don't do this, because we've
Hmm.
already done this. We've literally done this. Even with the 50% recharge time increase, you just run the, like, now, we granted we don't know what the numbers are going to be if you run like the strongest recharge add-on with this. This is still gonna be really, I don't know, man. I mean, I feel like this is a like, bro, what are you thinking moment.
I'm excited for it, honestly. I cannot wait for it. I
Yeah,
think it's like again similar to the pig thing is that it's taking a risk. It's putting something in the game that I mean it was a very strange choice. I must admit when I heard about it in chat today, I was like, wait, they're giving the best killer in the game a reason to be better.
yeah,
Like, okay, fair play. Um, I'm honestly kind of excited for it in a strange way.
yeah. And Casey is lamenting the fact that Legion's not getting the add-on rework. Honestly, yes, I agree. I feel like that's like there's a lot of killers that need add-on reworks that have just not been put on the list, and it's kind of a shame. Hold on, let me go back real quick because I want to check the list again real quick. I get Hillbilly is getting it, which is good. Hillbilly needs it. Definitely Myers needs it because he's got some really weak add-ons, and then he's got some bonkers, way too strong, crazy add-ons like Tombstone. I think Tombstone is like old Mori. They've been needing to touch that forever. Granted, yes, you have to like not hook anybody for most of the game and just store up on your your tier, but I've played so many games as Survivor where he sucks somebody off like because they're really bad at line of sight, and then I'm done most of the gens by myself for whatever reason, and then I'm the last one he finds finally, and then he just kills me, and I'm
Hmm.
like,
Yeah.
great, I really love that game. Like I didn't even get the chance to do anything. Like he didn't even find me. He just waited till he was like juiced and then like 99, and then he just came up to me, and I just so happened to be the one who ran the lucky ticket. Granted, and for some reason, it's repeated. I keep having this happen to me anytime I play Survivor as Myers versus a Tombstone Myers. Every time. I'm not even kidding. This has happened
Hmm.
every time. He sucks everybody else off, but for some reason, I'm the last one that he finds, and I'm the first one
Don't
to
clip on.
go. And I'm just like, and I don't even expect it coming. So I'm just like, okay, I can probably get to this loop before. Oh no, he's already tier 3. Oh no, he's on top of me. Oh no, he's grabbing me. Great.
Yep.
So I hope they're
Definitely do not
changing
clip
that.
this conversation.
Get rid of this mother. Oh, I hate it. I hate it so much. It's such a bullshit add-on. Get rid of it. The Hag is getting changed to add-ons only. Blight, Wraith, Pig, and Ghostface. Good for Ghostface. Ghostface needs it, but Ghostface really just needs give him Chewed Pen a base kit, please, or even just half of Chewed Pen. Give him like half of Chewed Pen, and then make Chewed Pen like an add-on still with just
Hmm.
less effectiveness. just please give him some love. I swear to God, they really need to do something for Ghostface because I'm so tired. Like, why do survivors get to reveal him so goddamn easily? Anyway, sorry, that's my own personal opinion. Uh, personal bias is coming in here. Um, but yeah, these are the ones that need it. I feel like Pyramid Head really needed it.
Hmm.
Uh, Deathslinger desperately needs add-ons looked at. Like, there's so many other killers. I don't know why. Like, I guess if they want to change a couple of things on Blight, I just feel like there's not really much. Like, I guess like if you really want to change Alchemist Ring or something. I know there are people like, or Compound 33. I know Compound 33 is the menace in the add-on kit for Blight for most people, especially in comp, uh, DBD. Um, but I don't know. I feel like Blight is the one who needed the least amount of touches to his add-ons.
I agree. Yeah.
Like, yeah, but my problem with that one is like the the add-ons. Like, I feel like whatever they do to the add-ons is just not going to make up for the amount of like dicking they gave Slinger, and if anything, it's just going to make him add-on reliant as opposed to the add-ons changing the game or making his playstyle different. Right now, that hasn't happened with his current set, and I just don't think that's going to happen with the next set. I think unless they make some crazy, bonkers, ridiculously overpowered add-ons on Slinger, uh, and even if they did then, I really would rather his base kit be good over bonkers add-ons. I really would. I think killer base kits should just be strong off gate. Or not even strong, usable. They should just be usable off gate. Like they should at
Hmm.
least be valid, if not good. Like not every killer obviously has to be amazing, but they at least have to have a well constructed base kit. And that's what Slinger's needed all along. And what they're doing right now with Slinger is they're just taking the one broken aspect of him and just completely like gut him, and it hurts. It's like Hillbilly all over again. I'm not even a Hillbilly player, but I felt their pain when they did the changes to him. I was like, this
It was
is
horrific. Yeah,
it was horrific to see this happen to Billy, because Billy, like, I don't think anybody complained about Billy outside of his add-ons. I think that it's kind of like the same thing with a lot of killers. I think Spirit, her add-ons were the thing that made her the most broken. Like, yeah,
hmm
some things in her base kit were not cool, but I think the overall problem with Spirit was her add-ons. They were just way too good. They took her way too over the top. So, seeing this happen to Slinger has been kind of upsetting.
yeah. I wasn't expecting it for Slinger, and again, I think, like, to be honest, I think this is going to be something that they probably go back on pretty quickly when they realize the problem.
Mm,
Is that, I mean, okay, to be fair, again, we can't say anything set in stone. We could play him tomorrow, and he could be perfect, right? We could be like, actually, this is the best that he's ever felt, right?
mm.
We don't know. Obviously, it's not going to be, but um,
Yeah, there's just
like,
some changes, like the Hillbilly change, everyone called that. Everyone called that ahead of time. It's not even like it wasn't even going to be obvious. It was super obvious the effect it was going to have on his gameplay and the effect it would have, and everyone's fears were basically confirmed when it came out. It was just basically like, yeah, this is exactly what we thought was going to happen.
mhm,
So I think it's the same thing with Slinger. To me, like the spirit changes, there is some ambiguity. It's like, how are they going to implement this? You know, there's some vagueness. So Spirit could still be good. It's just harder to play in certain circumstances. She actually has to think now and use her mind games to her advantage. She can't just like mind game you into oblivion to where you have no options. Now she might actually have to mind game you, and she'll get rewarded really well for the mind game, or she'll be punished for failing it. You know,
mhm,
like there's the option for that. With Slinger, it doesn't feel like just out of the gate. These are not vague. These are not vague changes. These are like one to one. Read it on paper. It is what it is.
mhm,
Like with Plague, these are changes where you could be like, well, these are good, but maybe they could be oppressive or maybe not. We don't know yet.
yeah, yeah,
But with Deathslinger, it feels like, just from reading it, it's just like, I don't know how else you construe what they did. How else
mhm,
do you view these changes other than what they say? Like they're pretty defined. You're getting a delay. Now, how much of a delay is the only thing that's vague. We don't know. But just having the delay in general is going to be massive, especially considering it's in tandem with three other nerfs or two other nerfs that are happening.
mhm,
And the only thing is you're getting a decreased penalty on movement speed. And to me, it's just like, we technically already had that. That was an add-on. It just now you're just making it so maybe we actually have to run that add-on now if they didn't change it. Like increased movement speed while aiming, increased ADS. Those are add-ons that exist, but they're worthless.
mhm.
And now, what did they do? Did they make it so you actually they invented need for the add-on now, and maybe they didn't change it. Maybe it still exists. Now you need to use this add-on, which to me is bullshit. That's a bullshit way to make an add-on viable, is nerfing a killer. Like, just so they have to use that add-on. If that's what they did, I'm going to be very upset.
Mhm.
As like somebody who was like a former like Deathslinger main, Deathslinger like enthusiast, somebody who loved playing Deathslinger. I mean, I feel bad for Alexandria. She's gonna get, she's gonna have to like,
Oh, for sure.
she's
Yeah.
gonna have to really relearn Slinger, because
Mhm,
this isn't like small changes. These are changes that you have to basically. It's like playing a new killer. It's playing like an entirely new killer, just a weaker version of an old. It's like a shadow of his former self, like Billy. This is super reminiscent of what they did to Billy, to me. I don't know. It's depressing. But outside of that, I think all the other changes are good.
yeah, for sure. I think that was the only one that I was unsure about. And in fact, I mean, unsure doesn't even really cover it. I think it's a bad change because,
Mhm.
again, like I said earlier, I'm kind of repeating myself, but like Trickster, is the ultimate example of how not to modify a killer, right?
Hmm.
Trickster sucked on release, and he sucked after the buff, and then 2 more buffs later, he still sucks. And the reason being is that it doesn't matter how strong a killer's 1v1 is. Like, we've learned that many times, is
Yeah,
that with Slinger or any other killer that's really good in 1v1, it doesn't matter, because as long as if their map pressure and their 1v4 isn't good, it doesn't matter how quickly they can down someone, right?
yeah. It doesn't. It truly doesn't, because we've all gone up against survivors who can't loop for shit. You down them in 30 seconds, 20 seconds, and they're like 2 gens still pop because you got unlucky and RNG dictated that, oh, well, today 3 different survivors are going to spawn in 3 different gens. Oh, guess what? That 3rd gen just popped now that you got the hook.
Yeah.
Because you had to take the time to find the survivor, then you had to take the time to hit the survivor, then you had to take the time to hit the survivor again, then you had to take the time to put the survivor on the hook and then go look for another survivor. And you're on a
Yeah,
map that
true.
doesn't benefit
Hmm.
you. You're on a big ass map. So it's like one of those things where you're at the whim. It feels like the problem with DBD the most of the time is you're at the whim of whether RNG is on your side or not.
Hmm.
And it feels like less your skill and more like I got lucky. Not to say
Yeah,
that there is
totally.
no skill. Not to say that there is no skill. Obviously, there are good survivors. Obviously, there are good killers. Obviously, there are better ones than me, and better than most players. Like, there's obviously high tier killers that are really good, but I think even most of them still agree at the end of the day, a high tier survivor is just too strong. It's just too strong overall.
Against the majority of killers, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, against the majority of killers, unless you're playing the best and you're playing the best at the top of your game. This is bear in mind, this is playing the killers at your best at the top of your game. I am
Hmm.
I am a blight player. Lilith is a blight player. I'm not anywhere near as good as Lilith is, but I still think I'm a pretty good blight. I'm not top tier blight. I'm not comp
Hmm.
player blight. I'm not willing to put in that much time to be comp level. I don't have it. I work a full-time job. I stream. I want to make content. I'm doing 80 different things. I just don't have the time to put in to become top tier competitive blight. I just don't. And even if I did, I don't think I'd want to be. To me, I don't
Hmm.
play DBD to be competitive. I like the idea of like competition. I like getting better. I like improving, but I don't want it to be competitive. You know what I mean? It's not it
Yeah,
to me.
totally,
It's
totally.
never this game has never been about being competitive. It's about having fun. I want to use this combination of add-ons and this perks to do some silly shit.
Hmm.
That's what it's been for me. And if somebody wants to play it competitively, good. All power to them. That's their choice, their play. It's not my thing. And I don't think DVD should be that. I don't like SBMM. I don't like MMR in this game. If you were going to do it, it needs to be way more balanced than it is currently. Still waiting for them to just always spawn survivors together at base and rework the shroud offerings? Please, God, yes. That'd be great. They should always spawn together. I don't think survivors should ever spawn separately. I think they should always spawn together, and honestly, I know this might be controversial. I don't think map offerings should be a thing. I think, yeah, would it kill jump scare Myers? Yes, it would. Would it kind of like hurt a couple of builds for certain killers? Kinda. But I think overall, map offerings hurt more than help killers half the time. Map offerings are not used by killers that often. Most of the time when I
No,
see map offerings, who's using it? Survivors. And most of the
the
time,
Haddonfield, yeah.
yeah, Haddonfield, RCPD, Cold Wind, Mother's
Yeah, I
Dwelling,
think the like
Badhand,
fundamentally the
Torment.
problem with map offerings is that, like, if you're it's always being used to give an advantage, and I think the fact that you can have an advantage from a map to begin with is kind of busted, right?
Yeah.
I think if every map was as fair as the Coal Tower or
Mhm.
something like that, it wouldn't be a big deal, because it would
No, it
just be kind
wouldn't.
of like personal preference. But
Yeah.
when you know, when a survivor or a killer generally uses a map offering, um, it's usually being used because it's a good map for them, right? It's
Mhm.
something that gives them an advantage before the game has even started.
Mhm.
Um, and although, like we were talking about earlier with the maps, I like the idea of not every map being, clinically fair,
Fair,
because it
yeah,
would make it
exactly. Because it
boring.
make it boring.
But but the
Homogenizes all the maps. There's no
right,
difference.
but there is an issue because that is not the way that it works. It's not like there's a margin where some of them are slightly better, slightly worse. There's ones that some killers cannot play, right?
Yeah,
Like, I mean, Haddonfield as being like the obvious one. I mean, Fractured Cowshed, especially before the rework, even
it's
now,
even worse now.
it's incredibly, yeah, it's incredibly powerful.
And
The
Rotten
amount of
Fields used to be a good blight
tiles and
map.
things.
I
Yeah,
agreed with Ascension. Ascension said this, and I was like, I couldn't agree more because every time I played on Rotten Fields prior to the rework as Blight, I did exceptionally well. I
it
got
was a great map. In
4Ks
fact,
more often than not.
yeah, I think that all of them were great blight maps actually before the rework.
I think they're
But
even
all,
worse.
all that happened was they made them more slippery, and they took away many of the objects that you could actually
Yeah, that you could
use. Right?
bounce off of. You have
Like
no objects to bounce off in corn. It's so
that.
frustrating.
Yeah. Okay. Do you remember back in the day? In fact, this was actually just this wasn't even just before the rework, but like a couple years ago, maybe. In fact, a year and a half, I'd say.
Mm,
Um, it was actually very common to get at least one tree to spawn on the corner of Rotten Fields Shack, right? At
mm,
least you could actually
mm.
have two trees spawn.
And then you had hooks
Somehow
that were pretty close to Shack,
you had hooks
even.
that were pretty
And then
close. You
gens
had
that were.
gens exactly like it wasn't too difficult for me to navigate from one side
Yeah, no, it
of
wasn't.
Rotten Fields, especially like with speed. But even without it, I could do it.
Yeah, you could do it
Whereas
without
now,
add-ons. I did it without add-ons. You know how long
yeah,
I played without add-ons, and I still 4K'd on Rotten Fields with Blight.
yeah,
That
yeah,
was
those maps were made significantly worse.
they were made significantly worse. And even the art design. Like, yes, do they aesthetically look cleaner and better? Yes. My issue is the color palette. It's terrible. It's a terrible color palette because it's all the same washed out yellow filtered color on everything. And everything
So
else is
yeah,
yellow. And so it makes it
my
harder to
biggest
see.
problem
It makes it hard scratch marks to see. I lose
that is my
survivors so
problem.
easy.
Mhm.
It's too bright.
I,
Yeah, the map's too bright.
See,
I
like fundamentally, I like the concept of it being completely different, right? It's the only map that is, I mean, contrary to the actual game, the name of the game, Dead by Daylight, it's actually set in daylight, right? Which I
mm,
think is a really cool, kind of unique take.
mm,
I think it would have been cooler if there were more options. As in, how cool would it be if every time you went to Cowshed or like Rotten Fields, there was a chance that it spawned at different times of day, like
yes.
nighttime Rotten Fields.
Or I
That would be
suggested
sick.
this. Imagine a blood moon.
Yeah,
Like a
there are
red
many things they could
moon.
do.
Like a
Yeah,
red
yeah,
moon, and
totally.
it filters like a red light on the map, but the map is other colors, so everything contrasts. It doesn't just wash out the red, you
Hmm.
know? Like it just
But yeah,
it like
but
give it
the biggest problem is
contrast.
I really like it, and especially I mean, if we're talking about like interiors, like the inside of Thompson House is a no brainer, right? It looks way better, and in fact, I think it functions better than the original one as well.
Hmm.
But the problem being is that they did that without trying to think about the actual like practical functionality of the map and the gameplay, right? Do you know how? I mean, it's a rhetorical question. I know that you know, but like, do you know how hard it is to see barbecue auras
Yes.
through Coldwind?
Hmm.
Oh my god!
It's
Like,
so hard,
it's
especially if they're on
practically
a
impossible.
gen.
Yeah, it's practically
Because
impossible.
not only
There is
do
no
they blend
contrast.
in with the light, they also blend in with the gen. So now you don't even know if they're on the gen. The only time you can see an actual survivor is they're running out right in the open and you can see their aura moving. That's the only time. And even then, that's hard. Because you're like looking around, you're like, where the hell is this mother? Okay, I kind of see him. He's right there. And then if you're blight and you're rushing at the speed of sound and corn, good luck seeing the survivor. It's already hard
Yeah,
enough.
sure. Yeah.
Now, you have to orient yourself so much as blight because you're moving so quick. You have to like
Hmm.
pause for a second in your mind, slow things down in your mind, but then you don't have any objects to bounce off of and you're trying to figure out where the survivor is. You're like, "Oh, what
Yeah.
can I bounce off of? Wait, there's nothing here and now he's moving this direction and I don't know where I'm going." Like it's so bad. I
Hmm.
have never. I thought the chapel and Disturbed Ward were bad reworks. And they are. They're terrible reworks. I think they're
Hmm.
awful. Cold Wind was like they took it up another level. It's like they went like, you know how we just completely fucking made these maps worse? Let's make the worst maps even worse. I cannot fathom who in their right mind made these maps and went, yep, ship them. They're good to go. Like, I just it boggles my mind that they did that. And they're even survivor sided, and I hate playing them as survivor because everything's just the same damn color and everything washes out into each other. And you're just like, what is this? This is like Swamp 2.0. Everything in Swamp is the same goddamn ugly brown, and it
Yeah,
all just
Swamp
blends
is a
in.
horrific looking web. Yeah, it's bad.
It is aesthetically not pleasing.
Mhm.
We're not even getting to mechanically. Not
No.
even through the loops. Just the map itself is not pleasing. The RNG on the maps, as far as like spawns are concerned, is terrible. And then we're not even getting into Blight, where he slides off of
Yeah,
every
not
goddamn
even worth
thing.
discussing. Yeah,
Yeah, like
not even worth it.
it's like you just like, and you know what? If Blight isn't good on one map, whatever. But just the map itself is just trash. The swamp maps are
Mhm.
just bad. They're just bad in general. There's just so much wrong with them. When you like not even you don't even not even getting to the mechanics of the spawns for loops. I'm just talking about spawns for other objects and talking about the design aesthetically as it is. Nuke these maps from orbit. Remove them from game. I will take a Haddonfield rework over like rework Haddonfield. That can stay in the game. But Swamp, get rid of them.
Mhm.
They're the
Delete it.
they're
Delete it.
deleted. They're not even good for the killer that they were released with on. How do you do that?
They're not good for anyone. No, not at all.
I just can't. Like, the only reworked map that was actually genuinely reworked fairly well, even if it is still survivor sided, in my opinion, is Ormond. That is the only
Yeah,
one.
I agree with that. Yeah, I think aesthetically and functionally. Yeah,
Functionally and aesthetically, I think Ormond is, even still survivor sided,
it is
is
still survivor
is
sided.
a
Yeah,
better, less survivor sided map.
yeah. It's
Person,
not as brutal as it used to be. It's
it,
not as safe as it used to
yeah,
be.
it's not like one of these ones where you play it and you're just like, I really just hate my life.
Hmm.
It's not like one of those kinds where you're playing it and you're just like, man, I really wish I wasn't playing this map. Like uh when I get the when I get maps like Haddonfield, or if I get maps like Mother's Dwelling, and it's just like all you do is you get this, like, even if you don't outwardly express it, inside internally, you're just like, okay,
Hmm.
sure, why not? And the
Yeah,
problem is that the problem is though, I feel that about most every map. I think that's my biggest issue about Dead by Daylight. It has the most maps per capita that are just trash. That are just trash. Even the ones that, relatively speaking, are considered the good ones, like some of the Macmillan maps, some of the Azeroth maps, I think are still bad, even if they're
I
less
yeah.
bad. And
I mean, it's kind of like the lesser of two evils,
yeah,
right?
yeah, it's just
I mean,
relatively. Is
I
this
think that there's kind of like three categories for maps, right? I think there's like there's good ones, which there's few of, but they're you're kind of always excited to see them.
your
For me, it's
Wrecker's
stuff like
Yard, your
Wrecker's
Dead
Yard and
Dog, um,
Dead Dog, and I love Gas Heaven.
Gas
I
Heaven,
love
Cold Tower?
Cold Tower. Yeah, stuff like that. I'm always excited when I see those ones. And then there's like tertiary ones that like not bad. Like for me, with Blight personally, obviously it's subjective, but things like Hawkins, things
Ironworks.
like Ironworks, Temple. I don't really mind those
Yeah, I don't
maps,
mind
right?
them as much. Yeah,
Yeah, and then there's just those straight up like you dread as soon as you see like as soon as you see the loading screen come
yeah,
up and you see that name pop up,
yeah.
you're
Cold
like shit.
Winds, Mother's
Cold Wind,
Dwelling,
Cowshed, Mother's Dwelling, Swamp.
Badham, Swamp.
Controversially, this is a very controversial take. I actually quite like Badham,
N-
and it's only because of the fact that there's some really spicy opportunities around those cars. Take away the cars is like one of the worst maps in the
Yeah,
game,
but
but
the cars are such a like limited aspect. Like, okay, playing Blight though, because obviously we're talking from the Blight perspective, because we're
yeah.
talking to you. Get into the goddamn basement of the preschool though. Good
Although,
luck.
I mean, controversially, if I lead
Don't you
someone the correct way
controversially
around there,
me.
no, controversially, if I lead someone around the correct direction of that one, I can do the super cool parkour trick where I jump over that like hole and then
Yes,
like stab
yes,
someone
you
in the
can
head.
do that.
Yeah, so which is why I can't like. It's not a good map,
But
right?
we're
It's not a
talking about I'm
functional.
not that's still above that's above. I'm talking about do your
Oh,
power
but
in the
below is garbage.
basement.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
do it
garbage, and
there.
it's same as House of Pain, garbage.
Oh
The
god.
two-story house, garbage, right?
House of Pain would
But
not be
like
so bad if they didn't put a breakable wall, and B, 3 different fucking god windows in it.
the
And
God Windows is what takes it away.
the
Yeah.
god windows are what make this so like okay, fine. Put 1 god window. Don't put 3 god windows as a potential for spawn. That's the same thing they did with
Yeah.
Chapel. They're like, "Oh, there's going to be like 2 to 3 breakable walls, and also you could potentially get 2 to 3 god windows in this fucking chapel." Like, fuck you, behavior. What are you doing? It's so frustrating. It's just like, thanks. I'm glad I'm playing Bubba on this map.
Hmm.
Oh my god. At least in old Disturbed Ward, there wasn't like there was a giant big gap between certain areas where maybe I could get an insta down with my saw. Now it's just like, oh, here's all this crap in the middle. Good luck getting somebody. Ugh.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know. I've always hated Disturbed Ward. I think Disturbed Ward next to like I think Haddonfield and Disturbed Ward for me are probably like my most hated maps next to
Uh,
Swamp.
yeah, I mean,
Swamp is at the
Swamp is.
top.
I
Just
mean, I almost feel like Swamp is in a different category though,
yeah,
because
it is.
it's
It
so
really is.
beyond unplayable
It's
and
so
so
old.
beyond
It's such an
ugly
old
and
map.
just gross and old. And even at
It's
the time, though, at the time it was bad
yeah,
and it was bigger back in the day.
and it's even
Um,
aged worse.
it has aged
It's
worse.
like aged like sour milk.
It's bad. Um, yeah. What were the other two you mentioned? I mean,
uh,
RPD. It's
Disturbed
just
Ward and Haddonfield, and
just okay.
obviously
Disturbed
RPD is
Ward
the new
is
contender.
yeah, it's not even like within question. But like Disturbed Ward as well as another one that I feel like from a again a Blight perspective was a very lazy rework.
Oh,
Like most of the collision doesn't work.
it's so
Um,
bad.
it's still extremely survivor sided, if not I think worse than it
Worse.
was
It's way
originally.
worse.
Yeah, like maybe
The
they've
inside building is
lessened a
even
couple.
worse.
It's worse, yeah. Like maybe they've lessened a couple of the kind of structured tile issues around the outside,
But the
but
inside
the
is
inside
so
is
bad.
horrific.
It's
Yeah.
horrific. It's even worse than it was before. And they even like it's not just the breakable walls they added. There's like additional god palettes, and then on top of that, they added those little bits to the ramps. So now you can't just like go up the ramp easy. You have to like take
Hmm.
the time to maneuver and then navigate around it. And it makes it so much more challenging it makes it unfun to navigate because you're just like, I used to be able to just walk up in here. Granted, the main building was never good to begin with, but I used to be able to just walk in. Now I have to like navigate around some weird ass like it's not even a fence. It's just like little things that are sticking. It's like part of a wood thing that's sticking out, and then a little rock sticking up, and it's just like, what is this? What were you doing? This doesn't even aesthetically look good, much less mechanically does
No.
it work good. It's just
Yeah.
trash. It's like yeah, you made the lighting night. The volumetric lighting is slightly better. Ooh, the textures aren't so pixelated. It looks kind of
Hmm.
better. It's like, so what? I don't give a fuck how good it looks. I want it to operate. I want it to mechanically operate. I will take a mechanically operative map over a nice looking map almost any day. And if Swamp was mechanically good, I'd be like, Swamp looks like shit, but at least it plays nice.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
doesn't
for
do
sure.
either of those things. It plays terribly. It looks terrible. It looks old. It is old. I guess the overall point is get rid of Swamp.
Yeah, it's complete and utter garbage. Yes.
It's complete and utter
Yeah.
garbage.
2 hours
Throw it
ago.
in the trash. Don't rework it because if you do rework it, you'll probably make it worse.
I mean, I'm still genuinely holding hope that it will end up being the best map of all time, right? Like what if? Like, like again, I know hypothetically it's not going to happen,
You're
but
hoping for too
what?
much, bro.
Right. I know, but hypothetically, what if you turn around after the mid chapter? Like, what if they secretly announce that yeah, actually, Swamp has been reworked. We play it tomorrow, right? And it's the best map in the game. It looks incredible. It's a proper like bayou setting with like swampy marsh and stuff.
And
The
there's an actual
collision
pier with
functions.
water.
There's an actual pier, right? Like what if it does turn out? I know it won't, but what if it does turn out to be the best map in the game? And every time you go to Swamp, you're like excited, right?
They may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. That's Lilith right now. Lilith is
I'm
is
trying my
singing
best.
Imagine over here.
I'm trying to find any conceivable way of dealing with the harsh reality that still exists in the game.
I know. You're trying really hard to wish it away, but Lilith, this is where you got to take there's the blue and the red pill,
I know.
bro.
Yeah.
The
Yep.
blue
I
and the
know.
red pill. You got to wake up from the dream. You can take the blue pill and go back to sleep, or you can take the red pill and join us in the reality of the Matrix. It's just not gonna happen, unfortunately. I wish, bro. I believe me, I'm right there with you. I want to be optimistic, and I'm not saying that behavior hasn't made good changes. They have. Um,
Oh, they have. I mean, this upcoming mid chapter is a great example of the fact that they are willing to put
Willing
the
to
time
make
into.
changes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah. For
yes.
sure.
I don't want to like shit on behavior all the time. Like when I make critiques, I'm making a critique. I'm being critical of them because I know they can do better. I've seen them do better, and I've seen other game developers do better than them. I think that's the main problem is we've like not every development team is perfect. Obviously, they're always gonna introduce something that's not good or introduce a bug that's game breaking or they'll introduce some sort of mechanic that is not very fun. But I feel like behavior is one of the dev teams that I've seen. I've never seen this kind of dev team before. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like they do things that are so weird and make no sense, or they'll say things that are so weird and make no sense, or they'll make a decision that and then go back on it, or they'll like take the game 2 steps forward and then 5 steps back in like a single moment. It's just like they're all over the place.
Hmm.
And then they fall back on this like, oh, we're an indie studio excuse. And I'm like, that doesn't fly anymore, dude. That doesn't fly.
Yeah.
You're
I
not an
mean,
indie studio anymore.
they've been on the top selling charts of Steam for horror games for like the past 5
Yeah.
years.
They also are responsible for Star Citizen.
Hmm.
Like that game makes a shit ton of money. It's not even released still. It's been 10 years. Longer. And they make money off of concepts for ships, not ships themselves. Concepts for
Hmm.
ships that don't exist in the game yet. They sell them for hundreds of dollars. They're making money. Don't lie to me.
Oh
Like
yeah, they definitely are.
it's just like you are not an indie studio anymore. You can't keep using that excuse. Matthew Cote, watch what you say before you say it. Don't tell people to play another game. It might be
Hmm.
true. It might be a true statement to make, but don't say that. You're trying to promote your game here, you idiot. I love you, but goddamn, man, you say like I'm sure Matthew's a wonderful guy. He seems like a fun guy. I think
Oh yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure.
I think he's a lovely man. He seems very sweet, and he seems like he's very like he loves his game. I bet he loves DBD. I bet he loves waking up every morning and coming to be responsible for this game. But man, you gotta watch what you're saying sometimes. Jesus Christ. When you say things like "Go play Civ 5" or something, then you're just like you're losing the plot here, bro. You're losing the plot. God damn, man. Come on, do better. It's a little it's I don't give me this indie dev bullshit. It doesn't fly anymore with me. It doesn't work. You guys are past that. I'll give that to a studio of 10 people, not a studio of like more than that. Like no. Uh-uh. That's like EA being like, "Oh, we're only mid-tier. We're only a mid-tier. We only have a mid-tier development team." It's like, "Bro, you have the resources. Don't fucking lie to us. Don't
Hmm.
do that. We know you do. You microtransaction the shit out of us. We know you got the money." They never let him make a statement without a script since the Civ 5 incident. Yeah, that was a bungle and a half. And any other studio would have ate way more shit than Behavior. But because Behavior did it, and everybody's like, "Oh, well, that's just behavior devs being behavior devs," they kind of got away with it a little bit. That would have hurt any other company to a degree that was like massive. That would have been like imagine if like Blizzard said that. Oh wait, they did something like that already. Don't you guys have phones? That was the "Don't you guys have phones" moment to me. Do you know what I mean? That was insane. I can't believe they did that. But yeah, I think we've kind of covered everything, Lilith.
I think there's like I mean, up until tomorrow when we can actually play it for sure.
Exactly. We'll know for sure on a lot of these changes. Some of them I feel like we do already have a good pulse on, and some of them we're gonna have to do some other things. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
We'll have to do some testing and see how it is. This is, I mean, honestly, this patch is gonna be a big shakeup. But like I said,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think the biggest shakeup is if they do something about the fucking maps, man. Just do something about the maps. Just actually, like, just bro. I'm not even a map designer. Let me in there, bro. I will make some motherfucking changes. I will shake some shit up. I'll do some crazy shit. I am not a game designer in the slightest, but let me like. Or let me do that, man. I please. I'm at the point where like, let me do it. I want to see if you guys are doing a terrible job. I could do no worse. If anything, I probably do slightly marginally better. Yeah, that was Blizzard. Blizzard did that. They did that was for their Diablo mobile game that nobody wanted. And now Blizzard is just taking hit after hit, man. They are losing hardcore every decision they made. I'm just like, man, you guys have royally fucked up repeatedly, and it's just getting worse for you. Oof.
Mhm.
Oof, Blizzard is taking some hits, man. Man, they've fallen from grace so hard. That's very sad to see, but I mean, not undeserved, unfortunately for them. Shouldn't have never been bought by Activision. I'm just saying, these problems really started ramping up when you got purchased. Fulmey's gonna take a man hostage and storm behavior offices. Let me do the maps. Let me do them, please. I'm taking this man hostage. Yeah, but Lilith, thank you for joining me, man. I appreciate
Thanks
it.
for having me. Honestly, it was a good time.
And on such short notice too. Like I appreciate that. Like this stuff just came out and I was like, we need to talk about this and I need to talk to somebody about this. And I was like, let's talk to Lilith. He's the man to talk to about that. Like I know you love talking about this stuff as much as I do. So
I do. I do.
I really wish we could have gotten Pixel in here. I asked him too, but he's busy working on his own content right now, and I
Yeah,
didn't
for
want to
sure. For
take him
sure.
away from it. He was just like, "Hey, I got stuff to do." I'm like, "All right, man, that's fine." I hope
Mhm.
that we get to work together on something else soon because I like working with people. I like this. This is the thing that I love to do: talk about things, talk about with other people, get their opinions, stuff like that. Like that's the interesting stuff to me. Also, guys, play hunt. I'm gonna plug this. This is not. This is just for my own personal. Like I want to plug Play Hunt Showdown. It's a good game. I promise you. I want to get more people into it. It's fun. It's super fun. I don't know. Have you played it, Lilith? Have you played Hunt Showdown?
I have not. No.
Play Hunt Showdown. I
I follow someone
just try it.
that plays it. Possibly. I think the problem is that like I don't have time to play other games right now.
I know, but just try it. Just if you get the opportunity. I swear, I need something else other than DVD, man. It's literally killing my soul. I can't believe that behavior has done so many changes that I do agree with, and yet it's just taken one change to just ultimately just make me just regret this game so much sometimes.
Mhm.
Like I remember like the last time I played it, I think I got to the point where like I was like near the end of the night and I had gotten Haddonfield for like the fourth time and I was like I'm done playing this game, man. I can't do it anymore. I just can't do it. It wasn't even the offering that time either. It was just random. It was just like, "Oh, now you randomly get Haddonfield too. You just played Haddonfield. Here you go again." I was like, "Oh, cool. Thanks." Ugh. But yeah, thank you, Lilith. I appreciate you, buddy.
All good. Honestly, no problem.
All right, love you, man. I
Much love, dude.
can't wait to watch your next stream, and I can't wait for your next YouTube video.
Oh, thank you, dude.
Did
Appreciate
you
that.
just release one recently? I could have swore I saw it in subs. I haven't gotten around to it yet. But didn't you
A new
release like
YouTube. There was 2 new videos up recently. Yeah.
was one about I was watching a lot of sweaty survivor videos from like Potato
Hmm.
Legion and other it's my new kink. I love it. I love watching like salty survivor videos. It's like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it just brings me joy because it's not happening to me finally. But didn't you release something like that, or was it just like a like oh
Yes, there was a particularly sweaty team on RPD. that one was kind of tough to deal with. It had a great thumbnail as well.
Oh, I can't. Yeah, I think I saw it. That's what got my attention. I was like,
Yeah.
wait, is that a Lilith video? I gotta watch that later. So I'll be watching that one later. But it's
Awesome.
pretty good.
Sounds good, man.
So guys, go check out Lilith on his stream. Hold on, let me give him a quick shout out when he does stream. He streams earlier than I do, so you guys will probably be able to catch him better than you'll be able to catch even me. But go check out LilithOmen and his YouTube channel and everything like that. He's a really cool guy. Love Lilith when he comes in and he's able to talk and he's able to like engaged with the chat. But Lilith, you enjoy the rest of your night. I appreciate you coming in, man.
Thank you, man. You too. Best of luck with the stream, buddy.
Thank you, man. You too. Bye bye.
See you, man.
All right, that was Lilith, and that conversation lasted way longer than I thought. I was expecting. I mean, granted, we got on tangents, and I kind of let the conversation go a little bit longer than it probably should have. But I don't know. I was really enjoying it. I hope you guys enjoyed it too. I know that like maybe if you weren't enjoying it, I'm sorry. I apologize, but personally for me, I think it's a good. I think they're good conversations to have. I think this game needs good conversation, and uh, it can really help enhance and bring this game some further opportunities. And I think that this is what's desperately needed in the current environment and the way that the game is running. Because right now, I don't know. I don't know. I think SBMM MMR has been kind of really hurting. I think it's been really hurting. It's been really killing my enjoyment of the game too. Um, I granted there was always things that I was upset about the game, but never so much that like I was like they could probably change this or they could probably do something about this and make it better. But I feel like SBMM is exacerbating already known problems that exist in the game. It's already making certain things more frustrating than they need to be, and I think that's something that needs to change. And the only way we change it is if we talk about it and let behavior know uh, this isn't okay. This is not something that we're cool with. This is something that desperately needs to change. And I know that I'm not like the biggest voice. I'm obviously like a small streamer. I'm not getting, I don't get that many views or attention, but I think no matter what, it's important to talk about. And I think talking with people like Lilith, who does have a bigger and more capable engagement in the community, and getting his take on it is very important. Because if I can get somebody who does have some sort of engagement on it, they can essentially help affect the game. I know, like Otsdarva obviously has had a big effect on the game. He like I can't tell you for sure whether he has 100% affected this game, but him and the community that he has and the conversations that they have introduced changes that are very similar to things that he's talked about on stream. So I think it's important. Obviously I'm not gonna get Otsdarver on my fucking streaming channel. I'm pushing my luck already getting LilithOmen in here. And I was pushing my luck even with Ascension back when he was still starting and growing really strongly. And I'm even I'm afraid to talk to somebody like Coconut or anybody else. I'm just like completely terrified to message them because I'm just like, man, they're gonna say no and I'm not gonna get anything out of this. So yes, they have, especially the plague changes. Yeah, especially. I think a lot of the things that Oddsdarver's community has done has brought attention to it. And I think it's important to have these conversations. And I plan on probably cutting that discussion up and putting it on YouTube. Probably cut out all the tangents, make them separate videos, and just focused in on the actual conversation at hand. Oh man, RGB is gonna kill me. He's gonna kill me. He's gonna be like, man, what did you do? You had all these random tangent conversations. I have to chop this shit up. He's gonna fucking hate me. But oh, also, by the way, RGB is responsible for my YouTube videos. So just quick shout out to RGBThighSocks as well. I don't know if he's in the stream right now checking it out, but he is responsible for the 2 edited videos that I put up. He'll be responsible for more content as it comes out. He'll be helping me out a lot. I've been getting him to do some of these edits. And if you guys are looking and interested in content creation and you're not able to edit your own videos or you just don't have the time, look out for RGB. He's a cool guy. He can do a lot for you. Give him a shot, and I'll be kind of like sending him around, passing him on, being like, hey, check him out, help him out. All right, we'll play a couple of games and then we'll probably stop stream. But we'll start off with some classic red blur blight because I love red. Red is my favorite color. And we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna put them up. We're gonna throw some blight into the mix too because blight is super fun. So let's go ahead. Let's push it on. Hold on one second. Let me get things situated here. There we go. Perfect. Sweet little baby 12, massive bandita and quinta. Speed devil blight, yes! Good one, Casey, I like that. Speed devil blight. Red blur blight, speed devil blight, let's do it.